Hello! It's a fresh new year, a fresh new season of Aegis, a fresh new patch, very crazy patch with lots of new things to it. And the AML is finally back. I am proud to announce to you that I am Sir Black P here to host and play-by-play for you, along with my good old friend Protroid.
Yes, good old friend indeed. We've been casting for a while, and I'm so happy we can continue that tradition into 2024. But there is so much to talk about as we're even approaching game day for AML, because we've had a wild start for this first patch of the year. We've already moved into a full one set, no mid set sort of agenda with TFT. And now that we've done that, we start seeing some bigger swings for the fences post-holidays. Big changes for how headliners appear in the shop. Lots of buffs across the board to a lot of underperforming units just before major tournaments like, of course, I'll be biased like AML and ACL, but not to mention Golden Spatula Cup 1, the KDA Cup happening in North America, and TOC 7 in China.
Oh yeah, so many big tournaments coming in. The pro scene is kicking off with the blasts all over the world. But yeah, as you said, new patch and so many changes, especially to me. The most impactful one, I would say, is the streak changes. So we don't have streaks anymore, and that means players need to manage their econ just so much better, and that changes the competitive landscape pretty hard in my belief.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there, because technically streaks aren't gone, because remember, they're not going to have that huge swing for the fences impact that you'd see in the early game traditionally, because you don't have to worry about going, I need to go either complete win streak or a complete loss streak at stage 2, or else my late game is dead. Instead, the thresholds are so high that it's okay if you see a waffle here or there in the early game. You're not going to be severely economically hampered at the end of the day. So it is a bit of an equalizing factor. I think the minimum for +1 gold is now 3 wins or 3 losses, so that is going to be a pretty tall order in either direction, but not insurmountable for a lot of these players.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I've loved the change personally. Playing, having the experience to play a few games myself here and there during this patch, and it feels so good that you do not have to rely on it. Of course, as you said, there are streaks still, you can do them, but you don't have to rely on them. You find other ways to level. But it slows the game a little bit. Maybe people are going to be stuck on 7 just a little bit longer. And then, of course, the 8, 9, and 10 levels being a little bit harder to push to. So legendaries maybe becoming a little bit more scarce. So that's all interesting points. And that's why we have been seeing many slow roll lines popping up even more. Of course, Samira was already trending before, but still it's become even more decent right now. Especially with the execution and changes as well, then we've seen Seraphine come up as well.
Yeah, lots of different big impacts, but I think we're sort of tiptoeing around the big ones at the top of the leaderboard right now. Karthus and Akali is back after a bit of a hiatus last patch when Ahri was sort of running rampant, and now Twisted Fate has also grooved back into the spotlight as well. So it is pretty interesting to see these comps move into a huge amount of force. If you watched any of Golden Spatula Cup 1 yesterday, you will have seen that Twisted Fate was a top 2 comp, I think, in every single game they had on broadcast. It just shows how consistent that comp is, even if you get a little bit of contention here and there.
Yeah, Twisted Fate coming back into the meta feels really good, because we were lacking a lot of AP lines. It was pretty much just Ahri dominating and then nothing else. So and Disco as a whole, it became much more of a good opener. If you have an early Tarek, Konami, Gragas with the buffs to the 1 cost units, it made so that if you want to commit to Disco all the way from the start, you can do that.
Yeah, and now we finally loaded into the game. It's going to be an item payout to start here. August is going to be the player that picks that out, so thanks you so much for that. And here, it's going to be a pretty simple. We're not seeing anything crazy like a crab raid or any of the new portals added this patch. Instead, we are just going to be getting things going with a bit of extra economy as you build your items early.
Yeah, extra economy. It's pretty interesting, especially as we were just talking about, without the streak bonuses, which are harder to achieve. So players might find a faster paced game here, maybe being able to make those pushes to the level 8 as soon as they used to happen on the last patch. But we see some familiar faces here around the lobby, like, for example, Batman, a former AAL champion, or even August, who has not only been a dominant face in the games, in the Aegis Leagues, but also been an analyst for us.
Yes, and also a member of the summer camp study group that's getting ready to prepare for the study group clash that's happening in a couple of weeks. So lots of different things going on in this lobby. And I gotta say, Max second is already looking pretty interesting considering how they got that double Nico start. But switching things back over to Shiruki, it looks like they've gotten an early punk going with the combination of the Vi and the Jinx. No headliner yet, but each of them can be re-rolled to great effect now.
Oh, interesting to see.
Completely gone.
Gone. No one picking up a headliner just yet, making that pre-level to 4, maybe getting access to that early 2-cost headliner, which can be really powerful. And I just noticed on the right side of my screen that August picked up a 2-star board on stage 1. So that can be giga for him. And then we start off with a silver augment for everybody. So it's going to be a little bit of a slower-paced game.
Yes, indeed. However, of all these options, I really love going for the Spoils of War. It means you're able to get that little bit of extra drip econ, provided you're capable of winning these fights. Overall, though, it seems like it's going to be econ options across the board. AFK and Cutting Corners both offered to Batman here. Again, each of which looking for these options to get to level 8, buying these options for the Karthus Kali Twisted Fate 4 costs that you desperately want in this meta.
Yeah, and being harder to find econ nowadays because of the changes of the streaks, not only is important to manage your econ better, as I said before, but also getting econ augments can be even more powerful than they used to be in the past. And we see they start by Batman, the early disco, as I pointed out, and then you have AFK, you already have the Rage Blade, which can be really good on the TF now, one of the best items that you can build for that unit. So off to a great start to go down that line, probably with a bit of a loose trick here, then that 18 gold coming up after the carousel. So has everything in his hands to get carousel priority and a lot of gold.
Yeah, but also they built a really effective early game board despite being hampered by AFK, completely different three-letter acronym, blocking them a little bit towards the end of it. They have 2 Taric 2s, a very strong front line, buffed up as well, do that tiny little bit of more damage, Disco already activated, and the Rage Blade already slammed on the Nami, which, well, not where it's going to end up, it's going to eventually become moved over to that Twisted Fate you're going to see later on. Nami has received a couple of bug fixes this patch that has allowed her to both use that Ginsu's Rage Blade a little bit more effectively, and it won't cause any weird interactions with her bubbles. So that should allow for a lot more health to be saved as time goes on.
Yeah, if we can get some kills here and there. We see Mac selling off that country headliner TK, so doesn't want to go with that right now. 3 KDA is going to be his option, and see Bacon here with a disco start as well. That Taric probably a much better front line now than it used to be. I think honestly, he was a bit underrated. I saw so many people hating on Taric, but I use him so much in my early games. He was already pretty decent, and now he can do that kind of thing that you just seen on your screen.
I mean, I've been calling for Taric reroll for the past, 3 days, honestly. I don't think we're at that point just yet, but it certainly would be a pretty fun thing to experiment around with those damage number buffs. However, the thing that I got to focus on here is that Mac has taken the risky moves. They're also going for as weak a board as possible to go for the lost streak, so we could see a very low HP total by the time we hit the Krug round. However, they are most certainly guaranteed to hit 50 gold by that point, too.
Yeah, that is definitely a good point, but going for risky moves and taking a big loss streak, it is indeed very risky. I love to pick that augment when I feel I have a strong board where I can get a decent number of kills or even go for a win streak. But of course, you cannot always control that, and it has been a rough start. Seeing his balls here, I chose headliner Annie, and then I Spark on the front line as well. You would think that he would be able to save a little bit more HP than he is, but it just looks like everyone is being able to build very strong balls right now.
To be fair, the headliner Annie is a new addition here, so it looks like it should be at the very least able to control the pace of these losses, maybe even break it into a win. Wow, what do you know? Nice little shot there from the boom.
Yeah, a nice little shot, but the question is, did we really want to win that? Probably not.
Remember, we were saying that it doesn't matter as much with the win and the loss streak. Mac is just illustrating a point for us, you see.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Good point on you. I like it. We see Batman there going for the tier on the 1 cast, so Yeah, a bit rough when the item you want comes on the one cost, but Tears it's still a very high priority. Shojin so good for the Seraphine on the early game, and then the Kardos and the TF as we mentioned before. The blue buff still very good item for other carries like the Ari, like the Ezreal, who might not be the top priority right now, but still very decent to use anyways. And of course, you can't have the entire lot playing the same comp, so somebody's gonna play the Ezreal and the Ari.
I mean, I got to point this out right here. It looks like August is also another player posturing for that Twisted Fate. Already has the Disco start through the Taric, as a few players have, but on top of that too, has gone for that Keeper start as well. So that augment's going to mean there's a lot of extra shielding power on these clumped units, a state that Disco loves to be in.
You're getting that early Disco, so good for anyone, and the Keeper's buff. Of course, Keeper's not as great on the Disco, since you get a little bit of overhealing there that's not going to go anywhere because of the shielding. You also have the Disco ball on the middle, so you don't really get to clump up everyone, but still very strong start, and it's guaranteeing him the win streak, and very likely to win the last one as well after this. And that early Bard, as I pointed out, and Bard, by the way, much better units now that he's not completely random, showing 3 damage dudes and then a healing 1.
Yeah, I have to say, I think the Bard change is one of my favorite of every little thing they've done in this patch for its quality of life. It makes the damage more consistent. It eliminates a lot of those awkward cases where you felt like you got a really good case for your carry Bard, just throws out 3 chimes instead of any kind of duding power. So it is a pretty effective way to ensure that not only can Bard still be a good support healer from time to time, he really is getting that Dazzler bonus down wherever possible. And August is now starting to showcase these situations where you can still win streak, can still get these economic advantages, potentially going into that Krug round. If they are able to win one more fight, they'll actually get +2 gold.
+2 gold, going over 40, and then pretty much as much gold as a player would have streaking back in the day. So not much of a change for August here, since he was able to destroy everyone like this. Gets an easy opponent here on Yager, who doesn't really have an augment just yet.
Yeah, and I will point out, though, too, because August was able to go in here unimpeded and with no other players also contesting that economic might, it really means that August has a chance to set the tempo of this lobby all on their own accord. They get to decide what the leveling curve looks like. They get to decide first pick of these units based on that economic power that they're going to be feeding into their composition. It's going to take a village to take them down.
Now, maybe the streak changes should put everyone on the same level a little bit more, but when someone can really jump ahead like this, especially if he can push now for the 6th, for the 7th win in a row, then as you said, he can control the lobby very hard, getting to that level 8 earlier than everybody will be, because nowadays probably if you level to 8 on 4-2, you're not really gonna have that much gold to roll, but August might have a lot.
I mean, August also just got a gold in Champion Duplicator there. That is insane when you're looking for all of these 4-cost carry compositions, because there are multiple 4 costs in each of them. It doesn't matter if you get the headliner of one, you still have to get the 2-star of the other to stabilize. So that is a great shift just to sneak on ahead. Meanwhile, coming over here to Mr. Chap, it looks like they're going for either a Mosher board or maybe a Jax. It's hard to tell, but since we have that Jax Mosher right now and not EDM, I don't think we're going to see that kind of EDM reroll.
Yeah, I don't know. I played so much Jax, to be honest, and either the Moshe or the EDM are pretty cool. And now maybe with the nerfs to EDM and Jax EDM especially, Jax Moshe might just be a little bit better. You're gonna have a lot of healing from the synergy plus from the vampires as well. So maybe able to forego the healing item on Jax and build him with just a little bit more damage. Let's see whether the reroll comes in or not, because it became a fan favorite combo of mine. Like, really, Jax is so fun to play. Now we see one more silver augment, and Tiny Titans can be really powerful in lobbies like this.
I'm sorry, I always get excited when I see Recombobulator. I know it's not always optimal. Heck, it's mostly never optimal. However, I just want to dream. I think honestly, at the end of the day, it would have been cool to see those two Urgots turn into two random 4 costs, but it's too heavy of a risk for most players' blood, especially when opening up a tournament like this. For here, though, switching over to Spin de Block, it looks like they've decided to go for, again, another pretty good early game item here. Stimpack is going to be forcing them to delay that a little bit longer, but Indomitable will give them a bit of board strength in the meantime.
He's losing anyway, so just one more loss there, 8 health down, and then he gets Stimpack activated. Not only that, but the Heartsteel cash out coming in as well. Heartsteel now changed, so gotta see whether he's gonna choose to cash out or just keep going, because now you have that option. And we see a very early trash set for August, and what do you know? August went with late game specialists, which means he's really pushing for high levels.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that's going to work out. August did lose a fight here, so they have lost a bit of their economic power. But like you said, board strength-wise, they put in the fresh. They're trying to find more options, so it could be a good way through. Spin de Block, as stated, has now proc Stimpack, and they will have that option to raise the stakes. However, looking at the HP, right, they're 46. Yes, I would imagine they could have a world where they attempt to go absolutely crazy, but I think the safe thing here is just to take the units and run.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he does. I agree. Yeah, getting the cash out, just getting a little bit more power onto the board. Very needed right now. With 46 HP, if you go for another 4 losses, then maybe we'd have only 1 effective health left. And that would not be good to play around, especially in a tournament setting where you don't want to go off on a bad start.
And it looks like they're trying to start pivoting towards this, again, Yone Ribbon reroll line that we've been talking about quite a bit. It isn't the exact itemization that we're used to seeing, though, where I think a lot of the time I see healing items prioritized very heavily on either the Ribbon or the Yone. So I was a little bit surprised to see the BT and the Hajj sort of done away with in favor of going for the IE that was just slammed on the Yone. However, it's still going to be a good option to try to stop the bleeding, but unfortunately, it's just not going to be enough just yet. These are really strong boards.
The healing items are extremely necessary on both units. They are powerful. They can dish out so much damage so fast, but they are still a little bit squishy, even at 3 stars, and of course they're very far away from that. So yeah, I agree with a very interesting choice in itemization. They're not going with any healing. Let's see whether Hodge comes in from that glove, but the BT just so much more powerful, in my opinion, because of that extra shield coming in as well.
Yeah, I think the best in-slot itemization that I've seen players discuss is this combination of either IE, Hodge, and BT, or drop the IE and go for Quicksilver just for more consistent uptime away from CC. And again, that is purely going for that healing. The Titans is a nice to have because of the resistances, but if you don't have the healing to bring yourself back up to those high HP totals, those resistances aren't going to help you too much when you just have 20 HP left.
Precisely.
Ooh, double Blitzcrank. Too bad this is a KDA board.
Some other players would love to have this shop.
Heck, I would take that and look to start pivoting, honestly. Like, that's pretty good.
True, yeah. And with the items on the Seraphine right now, they could go easily onto a TF. But, I mean, come on. We have 8 Seraphines right now, so...
Yeah, that is really hard to give up on at this stage. And it's interesting because we talked a little bit about Seraphine being this good off-ramp where you recognize that you aren't going to be able to play either the Twisted Fate or the Carthus, so you try to find something else to get things going. Here, though, because the headliner was presented this early for Max second, they just decided to go all in on the Seraphine first and foremost. And as someone who has also been able to mess around with Seraphine a little bit this patch, she feels absolutely insane when going against some of these boards where, like we said, Disco wants to be clumped around the disco balls. That just means she's going to have an even easier time hitting those targets.
Exactly. I wonder whether
there we go.
This Seraphine play was completely planned or just by chance the Seraphine popped up and Mac just knew how good it could be. Because as you just pointed out, in a lobby like this where so many boards are going to be clumped up, Seraphine can reign supreme because she loves those clumps. She's going to be able to throw her ability there, and a 3-star Seraphine already on 3-6. I mean, any 2 cost upgraded to 3-star this early into the game is a massive advantage to any player, and so Mac is poised to get some wins right now. and everyone is going to struggle, not only because they have to face this kind of champion, so they're going to have to position around, but they're also contesting each other, so it might be hard for some of the players to find their units.
Yeah, I mean, I do also have to call out too, perfect synergies on the left side of the board. It's always just a nice thing to look at here, even if perhaps not the most impactful thing at the end of the day. But I completely agree too. Like, Seraphine at stage 3 going into stage 4, really good timing. It should allow for a lot of different power to come in here and win streak through a lot of stage 4 as we approach it. But the other thing I have to call out though is that despite seeing all this attention towards Disco, so far it looks like Pentakill has been pretty much ignored by most of these players. I haven't seen anyone trying to build up those lines, trying to see if they can move into the Karthus. Granted, there are a lot of Disco players. Not all of them are going to be able to hit the Twisted Fate. It is possible we could see that transition. But it is weird. You usually see at least one player beginning to posture.
Agree. It's weird. It's interesting. And what's interesting as well is Batman's economy. He's already getting into level 8 already with 60 gold to roll on full 1. That is majestic economy management in now with the strict changes and all. So let's see what kind of choices he goes for. Now he can find his full cost headliner. But I could have gone with an Ezreal there with a blue buff already, but no. He really wants to find the special one, and there you go. We have the Dazzler TF. That is a massive upgrade. And considering he has probably 2 other people contesting him, that's a huge hit.
Yeah, this is the power of being able to hit level 8 and manage your economy quickly, because the sooner you have access to those 4-cost headliners, the fact that you're just able to deny them so easily from your opponents here. And it looks like they've opted to slam that blue buff onto Twisted Fate, get more uptime on the cards, but so far they haven't been able to build a strong board around this TF just yet. And meanwhile, again, that Seraphine 2 is just going to really make stage 4 her oyster.
Not only not a great board around the TF, but also we see the power of the Seraphine, especially against this kind of comp. And now we see the gold augments to spice things up a little bit, not too much, and we go with the Jewel Lotus, so everyone is going to be able to crit here. We really want to get one more Disco in, so we have an extra Disco ball there for the front line to get buffed as well.
Yeah, it looks like we're actually missing the Nami right now, so 1 cost is going to be a little bit hard to find at level 8, but not impossible at the end of the day. But considering Batman's position, they are actually going to be rolling a little bit steeply for it, just to ensure the fact they could maybe get the 4 Dazzler in on top of a deeper Disco run.
Oh. All the way down into gold, so no economy anymore. The Blitz is here. Sacrifices contesting other players to get the Blitz.
Yeah, Blitz 2 is a nice consolation prize, and I mean, you still are contesting those other players just because Blitzcrank is still going to be incredibly prevalent. Here we get to see, though, it looks like it is Country coming up here, and I gotta say, I like what we're seeing so far here. There's a lot of different ways to play Country now on this patch, especially with the introduction of the Spatula. Most players historically have stayed at level 7 in order to reroll and get as many free stars as possible. However, now that you've introduced the emblem into the mix, it's possible to rush back to 8, skip over some of those free star units, and instead try to go for Country 7 with Emblem. However, right now it seems like we're just going to stick around here for a little while to figure things out.
And now transitioning onto Shirayuki's board, who has that duplicator, so can use that to have that very early 3-star Yone, or possibly even a 2-star Kane if he high rolls into that, because he already has one. We have Heart still being played, so taking advantage of those little bit extra bunch of economy there, but no Yone coming in from him to close out his board, unfortunately. Mac the second is the only one player stricken into the board, into the game, and there he is with a big Seraphine carry against the Yone. She can do so much, and that Morello is gonna make so the Yone cannot heal. He just gets demolished with that Spark amping up the damage against him. That's going to be an easy fight for Mac II, who keeps his win streak going.
I just love watching that first cast from the Seraphine just immediately trigger 2 different crowd divers to immediately mosh onto her, just like, yes, Seraphine, let's go! Woo! And then just die instantaneously. So I'm sure Seraphine's getting used to getting mobbed by her fans like that, but right now we have to get used to Mac II, just because, again, every time we try to move away from their perspective, they come right back.
Oh yeah, and now I'm interested to see where is Max Second's board going to go from here? Because are we going to see a 3-star Nico, a 3-star Echo on the front line? If we can see that, then the Seraphine board really caps out. And what's interesting is Nico is not a very used unit unless you're really playing that Seraphine or maybe a Nari Akali kind of line. But Nico is one of the best front lines in this game. She can be a beast with the correct items and, of course, if you can 3-star her.
Yeah, not exactly Bacon, by the way, has found that Karthus angle, and this is what I've been talking about, trying to find these off-ramps here and there. Spear Sojourn isn't optimal on Twisted Fate, but it's good enough so that way it can work on these other angles if you aren't able to hit it, which is why it has become so much of a powerhouse here. And because Not Exactly Bacon was able to find the Karthus headliner, they've turned that around into their entire board here, so they got a lot of good opportunities here. Also mixed in the 4 Executioner for sheer amounts of damage. Let's see how much this Karthus deals.
Probably a lot, and we see already 2 deletions there on the backline. August's board starts to disappear completely. Only the front line left, and they are not going to be able to do anything. And that's going to be a 100-0 kind of fight. The Akali with no items, but helping out, dish out that extra bit of damage onto the low health targets, and the Karthus destroys everything. And by the way, we have 5 Karthuses, so maybe we can see a 3-star coming in here.
Hey, I mean, like we said, Karthus has been mostly uncontested despite the power. It's possible that we could see some players look to see if they can sneak on in. Mr. Chab over on the right side of the screen has picked up their first 3-star free cost of their country reroll, being that main carry of the... Oh, sorry about that. I think my microphone did something a little bit weird right there. I'm not quite sure what the heck happened there.
And now we see Batman here with that blue buff Twisted Fate, far from an optimal item, but still would need it to be built with a Shiv as well, combining with the damage, with the ammo reduction from the TF. Now let's see whether that's enough or not, because it's not looking like it. The Karthus is still deleting things, is going to have a hard time killing that Blitzcrank, but if does kill the TF, then the fight is going to be easy. No, not able to. The cards were able to access the backline, and then the kill comes in. Not exactly Bacon does not survive. Spindy Block is the first one eliminated from the game. 8th place is the Tamans. Magnus II loses his win streak to Yakor, who is now the only player on fire in this lobby.
Spin to block going out, by the way, is huge here. They were holding on to a lot of Yones that other players were looking for, and so as a result, them moving out opens them back into the pool. So curious to see how that will evolve. The other thing I got to call out here is that despite the fact that we have 5 of these Karthuses, we really need that for Akali here, just to ensure that against those disco boards, there is more of an in that allows for those early nukes onto the Twisted Fate.
For the nukes to come in, we really need the Karthus to do a bit of damage, and then the Akali to come in and finish it off, because usually that healing from the disco balls and maybe some other built-in healing onto the units is enough for the TF to survive the Karthus blast and then heal back up and keep himself at a decent enough damage so that the Karthus never finishes it off by himself. Now we go back to Shirayuk's board here, seeing the Yone play with very different items, but it is a 3-star Yone now.
Yeah, remember, Shira was being contested by Spindy Block, so they didn't even have to use their Golden Champion Duplicator to get it at the end of the day, which is very nice. They can now preserve it for either a very lucky early Alawi 2, or if they want to go for the Viego 2 as well, just get a little bit more power here, there, anywhere, that should be just fine.
Let's see whether the Crowd Divers can truly make it true to their name and dive onto the backline and kill that Karthus. Yone getting Nexus there. Finally is going to be able to kill the enemy carry, and that's going to be an easy fight for them, because that Shield Breaker, that God Breaker, is so helpful in deleting a comp like Bacon's, who is massively amped up by shields.
Yeah, Shira also has to remember that Edgelords is such a positioning dependent composition, where the second that those one range Edgelord units, particularly the Yone, is able to get a unit to half HP, it's going to die behind them. They need to try to use that to their advantage to hit that backline, hit that Karthus as quickly as possible to really keep things going. Switching over here to Mr. Chab, they have, like I mentioned, found that Samira free. However, that's been the only 3-star free cost they've been able to find. We've seen contention pretty much from every other line blocking them, where it's been hard for them to find Urgots. It's been hard for them to find the Vexes just because she's been a strong all-around unit. Heck, they haven't even found a Thresh just yet, which is really hard to see, and now they're going off a fully beefed up Shirayuki. This is going to be a tall order.
Look, the Yone very close to getting to that Samira, but she's deleting him with the Giant Slayer. She demolishes everyone, and look at the amount of gold coming into Shirayuki, but it's not going to be enough. Chabo gets the win. Chabo was very far away from hitting any Samiras, honestly, and then suddenly out of nowhere he gets a 3-star Samira, gets a big amp up to his board, and it's interesting to see how he has kept his board, because now that with the executioner changes, I feel that maybe many times you are actually going to want to make that push for 4 attacks instead of just 2, which means that your country board overall becomes a lot different than you used to see, and even without the trash, it's still a very good board here.
Yeah, again, country relies so much on powering up that horse as much as possible, so it is always hard to see when you're not quite able to do it. I like the pivot into the Guardian line to try to see if we can get a bit more power while being contested by other players. Another thing I gotta call out really quickly, though, before this fight is that August, who was our win streaker, was top of the leaderboard for so much of this game, has now dipped all the way down into 7th place, so they need to fight with everything they have left to claw their way back to the top 4.
Let's see what that can happen. We see Chabo facing off against Batman here, the big disco line. The Samira with the Giant Slayer is so great at killing high health targets, and that Blitz is getting deleted. But the TF can pull off one more card kill, and no, my god! The Lulu is left alone, but survives and gets the win for the Batman. August is gone from the lobby, -1 there. He went hard on the late game specialist, and unfortunately it did not pay off.
Yeah, late game specialist is such a risk, and to be fair, we did see a lot of players opt for augments in the early to mid game that didn't give them a lot of immediate power. However, the power of them came online far before August was able to reach level 9, which, as we already stated, is so much harder to do now that the streaking changes have come through. So it is unfortunate that we've seen August go out in 7. This is still game 1, though, still a lot of tournament to play both today and just in general for the next couple of weeks, so nothing they can't shake off.
No doubt, can shake it off. There's so many games still to come. Yakor gets a Namumu 3. Great frontline piece there. Vex 3 as well, so 2 amazing upgrades. Mac with some upgrades as well. Shirayuki 2. Oh, as I pointed out before, the Nico 3 did come in from Mac II. So that is, in my opinion, one of the best frontliners in this game. Now let's see, that's going to be enough to guarantee a win for him.
Yeah, I was going to say really quickly, we're seeing where the rest of these countries' units are going. They're over on Jakor's board, and we can even see that illustrated now that they even moved in. Still only silver on a lot of the countries specifically, but the fact that you now have the Amumu and Vex, which some players actually prioritize a little bit higher due to their sheer utility, that means that they're going to be in a very strong position, and despite that Giant Slayer, Samira can't break through.
Yeah, the thing is, that's a whole crusher. 3-star Amumu with so much HP from those 2 items combined with the Warlock, and then the HP based healing from the Declaw with if I am not mistaken, no anti-healing whatsoever on Chabo's board. That meant the Amumu was just impossible to kill. 2 players went down, and now we only have 4 players left, so our top 4 of the lobby is already set.
Yeah, a tie as well with Shirayuki and Mr. Chab both going down in 5th and 6th respectively. That is going to be a pretty insane thing to see. Moving over to Mac II, they have been going strong off the Seraphine for a while. However, now they're starting to see the pitfalls of this composition where it's an off-ramp. It's not going to take you to the finish line in most of these cases, though. A top 4, very respectable, but now you're starting to see the Twisted Fates come online. The power levels will hurt and be hard to overcome, but that's going to be a nice saving grace.
Look at the bomb in the backline, and then the Akali finishes it off. Much akin to the Cardinals, Akali kind of comes. Seraphine bombed the TF, and then Akali dash through, got the kill. The Batman's gun. Mac II destroys the opposition. As we said before, Seraphine against these clumps, she's really, really good, and one bomb can just melt a whole comp.
I need to look at my caster guidebook again, because I'm pretty sure when I caster curse someone, bad things are supposed to happen, and yet instead, that's going to be the 3rd place coming in for Mac II. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here.
I mean, I really don't want to be the one to be able to caster curse him, but Mac II's board is looking really strong. when you have the Seraphine 3, that is great. And as we pointed out before, getting that very early got him to a very strong stage 4. That was nice. But to cap out the board, you really need that big, beefy frontline who is going to be pretty much impossible to kill, so the Seraphine can throw so many more bombs. And that's exactly what happens when you have that 3-star Nico, especially with that steadfast hard, which is such a strong frontline outfit.
Not to mention the fact that there was so much free cost reroll going on between 2 different players playing Yone, 2 different players playing Country. It meant that opened up a lot of other free costs out of the pool to have greater odds at even hitting that Nico in the first place. So that did work out really nicely into Mac's favor. Meanwhile, we're going to have to see how this fight is going to be able to go here. Not exactly Bacon has now finally hit the Akali 2 with all right items. Not exactly going to see that more defensive one to the far left. However, that should be enough to maybe get her onto the Seraphine quickly for the Carpus to play cleanup.
Even Shroud replacing a little bit the last Whisper. We see the deletion coming in from the Executioners now. Can the Seraphine do a little bit more damage to the Kots? He's isolated onto the corner, which means the bombs are not going to come in onto her. The Akali can make the dash and get the kill. Yes! The Cartus is completely gone. The Akali on this side gets the kill on the Seraphine, so now only the Nico is left. Does she have decent damage to get the kills there? The Akali healing up with the Hajj. She's dealing more damage, but look at the size of those shields, and now the overtime comes in. The Nico gets buffed up, and she gets the kills in the AoE. Bacon takes the loss. Still enough HP for him to survive safely with only a 1 unit loss.
Okay, man, you win. Like, Nico's a strong unit. Like, we've been sleeping on it for a while. Players have been ignoring her power. You are truly serving as a herald of her might. And we understand it. She's a strong unit with good itemization to boot. So, all in all, I have to say, like, I also probably need to start giving the Seraphine comp a second look, because this is doing far greater than just a off-ramp, as I previously said.
Yeah, with the correct things found onto that front line, it can be massive. Now we see Yakor's Ghost facing off against Bacon here. Yakor had a very rough time finding that Samira because he was contested by Chabo, but after Chabo's that, he was able to get that Samira 3. Finally, she dies, but still, maybe the Vex and the Amumu are being the true stars here on this comp. Look at how hard it is to kill that Amumu, but the Vex is gone, so now the Amumu is going to be left alone, and can he just give everyone a hug and get those kills or not? It doesn't look like it, because he's alone, he's far away from the Carters. That Deep Claw tanks so much, but it's not going to be enough, and the Ghost goes down. But that's a Ghost, so nobody dies.
Yeah, all 3 players alive here. However, I don't think we're going to see all 3 make it to the carousel at the end of the day. We did also see, by the way, a very scary thing that can happen against the Akali boards. You're going to have to worry about your corners, because that will be the prime target for Akali to dash to. So we are seeing, again, these last-minute moves from Jakor, trying to save that Samira for as long as possible to really get that damage going, or maybe even try to get her to attack the Akali as she dives in, but it looks like she's going to be going against a slightly different target.
Let's see, Samira, same side as Cardos. Maybe she can get access to that side. Maybe the Mumu can go around there. The Akali is far away from any very important target. She is on the Vex, but she's dealing nothing. Look at that massive fight in favor of the countries. Everything is just dying easily, and now the Cardos is left alone. Bacon is gone, or not. Maybe 1 HP. He's going to survive on 1 last life. And then Mac the second facing off against that Ghost. The fight is about to end. Are we going to see all 3 players being able to make it onto the carousel, or was Protroid correct?
Oh, please mean Protroid's correct. Protroid's correct. Yeah. Protroid's always correct. What can I say?
And Seraphine is going in 3rd place. Yeah, I mean, I was expecting a little bit of a better result there, but it was not bad at all, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, no, I would say that did exactly what Seraphine is supposed to do, right? Had a really strong mid game, was able to stamp down a lot of players that were still looking for those free cost rerolls that weren't quite able to hit. And once the late game has come through, once the 4 costs come online, that was when she truly started to fall off. So I think Seraphine completely achieved her job as this strong stamp down, as you could say.
Agree. Now we're gonna see that massive Amumu with such a great itemization to be able to tank that the opposing board from Bacon, and the 1v1 between the two players, Bacon was able to survive on one last life. Now let's see whether that's going to be enough for him to get the win here. Wasn't able to get that Yorick too. The Akali is correctly positioned, so she goes on to the Samira, but can she get the kill? She was not able to. The Samira did die to the Cardinals AoE, but so did the Akali to the Vex. So now the Vex is still safe here on the corner. She's not even taking damage from the Cardinals. Meanwhile, that Amumu is so tanky that the Cardinals just does nothing to her, to him. Now, can the Vex survive one more? She cannot. Is the Amumu the one to get all the kills? Yes, the Amumu is unkillable. The D-Claw does the job, and the Bacon's fried. Yakol gets the win.
Well, it's not exactly Bacon. Who knows what it is at the end of the day, but certainly it has been defeated pretty soundly, I would say, in this last fight. And let me tell you, lots of stuff that we kind of expected to see with a little bit of spice added in here and there. We talked about how a lot of this game was going to be Twisted Fate. However, a few different players, both of our top two, found that difference, moved towards the Akali Karpus lines, and tried to move from there as well.
Yeah, one thing that I love to see watching both Yakol and Chabo playing Samira is how differently you can play that comp now. You can go with IA, one more or maybe two more glove items and just sit at 2 executioners, or maybe you can go for 4 executioners, forgo the glove items, and find different itemizations for her. Of course, maybe the 4 exec line is not as great because he didn't perform as great, or maybe it was just luck, I don't know. Because of course Yakor, even though he wasn't able to find the Samira, he found a good out finding 3-star Vex and Amumu to compensate for it. So yeah, maybe that had something to do with it, but still, it's like to see, it's good to see that the executioners have more ways to play around them now.
It's also important to note, too, this is the first game of 2 in our first block. Players are going to stay around. They know each other's playstyles. They might recognize the fact that a bunch of them are predisposed to some of these free cost reroll compositions. I'm really curious to see if they're going to go into the second game of our first block trying to go for these same angles again and just trying to stamp down each other harder, or maybe they're going to try to explore some different compositions, find some angles that their opponents weren't looking for, just try to shake up the tables a little bit.
Yeah, agree. Recognize the lobby, scout them from the first game, and see what you can change to the second one. Well, let's see what happens, because we go for a short break now, and shortly game 2 is on. All right, it was a short break indeed, and we are back, ProTroid, with one more game. And now, as you pointed out before we went into the break, I wonder, what other players are going to find different ways? And we saw so many going for Disco. No one going for Cartus. Of course, we saw Cartus, but that was a pivot. Are we going to see someone go more focused from the early game already onto the Pentakill line?
And on top of that, too, I'm curious if we're going to see any other lines that weren't exactly explored. I had already said this. I'm a big Punk fan. I know I get those same looks whenever I say that usually. So as a result, I want to see some more options explored here. Give me reroll Jinx. Give me this weird Masher Vi stuff that goes against every fiber of my being based on the 100 games I played on the last patch or so. Give me all these different fun ways to play around it. Heck, Twin Terror. Give me a bunch of Twitches. I love the Twitch. He's a rat. It's fun. Give me all these different compositions. So much is viable on this patch.
Twin Terror is so good, but of course, you need that augment to pop up. And then we did not see any Ezreals. We did not see any Caitlyn's as well. I think Caitlyn might be a harder unit to play now with the changes. But if you can get that early chosen headliner, headliner Corki, and farm that 8-bit power, and you can go on to 9-10 stacks of that 8-bit, then Caitlyn can still be a menace, as we have seen in a few tournament plays here and there. And even I myself experienced it. Caitlyn, as I said, might be a bit harder to play, but she can be good still.
Well, it's interesting, too, because a lot of TFT players, when they look at the patch notes, or they look at the icon or graphic that appears that says, ooh, this was buffed, this was nerfed, a lot of the times when they see something in the nerfed category, that usually means, oh, I can't play this anymore, this is trash, why would I waste my time? And in reality, there are still a lot of angles that you could still, for example, play Spellweaver Ahri. You could still find the Caitlyn, or heck, the Ezreal that we were talking about, which is still effective, just not in the same way that it was previously. So there are a few different options here. Curious to see, again, if any of those lines do come up, or if players are just going to be so laser focused on Twisted Fate once more.
And now we're gonna start off with Bacon winning after carousel choice and a completed item anvil for everybody in the lobby. So maybe giving a bit more direction to everyone from the start.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of these players, I would be surprised if they actually hold a little bit longer to pop this immediately, just because, again, you don't need to throw this open at stage 2-1. You can hold on to it, figure out if you want to try to get something a little bit more pointy for whatever your final comp is going to be. That said, though, the players that pop it earlier are going to have a lot more power on their board a lot sooner, and that is a Heartsteel Cassante in shop. That's a pretty nice option.
Nice option to get a Heartsteel opener. Now I'm gonna throw it back to you with a question, Pro.
Oh boy.
We can have pretty much any item come off of that anvil. What is gonna be the most powerful item that you can get at this point in the game?
I mean, honestly, for me, I like to try to go for defensive items early, just because that will end up in so many different compositions. Particularly, again, you go for the double armor on the Bramble. That means you're going to have a lot of good defense against all the auto attacks that are just being thrown around in the early game. On top of that, too, you could also see a world where you try to go for, I think you pointed out, one of your favorite items that is already on the bench, the armor and the glove coming in here. But I don't think Steadfast Heart is going to be exactly the way to go. But either which way, either something defensive if you don't know what you're going to play, or if you're positive that you have the ramps down and known for whatever your comp is, try to go for something pointy. Get that Ginsu's Rageblade. Figure it out.
Makes sense. Now we're going on to augment selection for everybody. Oh, it's a
very different
cards. Things are going to be fun here, and starter kit can be really cool. Sometimes not that much, but let's see whether that's going to be the choice or not. Cyberbulk was nerfed, but still a very strong option.
I mean, Starter Kit is a lot more tempting these days. Cruel Pact is too. Starter Kit is a lot more tempting these days just because there's so many different forecasts that you can use at your disposal and just get a lot of effect on. However, it seems like we are going for something a little bit safer. I also see a bunch of reroll potentially happening for August here, so curious to see if that's going to evolve into something more along the country line, trying to, again, go for that, or if it's just looking for more ways to find those high-level forecasts earlier.
As viewers could hear, I could not hide my disappointment. Two fun options to take, and then we go with the safer one of the bulk. That was, but I mean, makes sense. You really just don't want to go too crazy. Maybe Cruel Pact, too long of a time thinking about which augment you were going to pick, and then taking Cruel Pact at the very end of the timer would that just not be good. So it makes sense. And then we have Freaky Friday here for Yakor, which is one of the augments that I love the most.
Yeah, Freaky Friday is really fun. It's a little bit awkward compared to some other prismatic items because for the first couple stages, it's more of a gold level augment where you're just guaranteed to have that Trinity Force. However, being able to spread out that damage, just spread out that huge stat ball that pretty much every unit wouldn't mind to have, that is going to be a pretty effective thing moving on. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of move more towards that Yon Riven reroll again, just because each of those units wouldn't mind holding on to that.
Would be pretty easy to itemize both of them. I also love it on the Samira line, both Samira and Urgot, or Samira and Vex. Very good users of that. Well, I mean, as you said, it's a massive stat ball to any unit, so it's going to be good on everything.
Yeah, really curious here. Jinx, not going to be the option for August. They've already slammed that Ginsu's Rageblade. Sorry, they haven't slammed the Ginsu's Rageblade. They've already slammed the Spear of Shojin, so not going to be the option that they want to go through. Shiryuki, however, has decided to go for the beginnings of a Yasuo reroll. Now, this is something interesting because historically, most players I've talked to have said if you're not able to hit Yasuo reroll really around now, stage 4, stage 5, you're really going to be behind for so long. However, with other reroll options coming in a little bit more powerfully, there is a world where Shiryuki could hit a bit sooner.
If he can build his board properly to get some kills, not only he's going to get that extra bit of econ from the Spoils of War, but also that damage amp to the Yasuo from the stacks. So this can be massive, and he already has 2 amazing items for the Yasuo. Then he, of course, can build the third off that BF sword. So it's a great start. I mean, there's always a chance to low roll, but already with 5 Yasuos, 2, 3, of course, getting some kills as we saw on the last fight. everything is on a decent spot. I think if there is a decent spot to play that comp, this is it.
Yeah, and Spoils of War is easier to proc with the execute damage that comes from the Yasuo as well. So we could see an extra couple of gold come in here or there, where really in most cases you wouldn't exactly expect them to come on through. So that should also be nice for Econ. Get Shirayuki to these Econ breakpoints that, despite the fact that they're re-rolling, will also still be able to hit.
Now we see the power of those diamond hands, 400 extra HP to a unit, plus that immunity for 2 seconds there. And then you combo that with a BT and a Sterex. Any frontliner becomes so impossible to kill on stage 2.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, this is a really good option here. Again, the itemization isn't exactly what you would think of for the Evelynn at the end of the day, but as you said, you right now just want to make sure you have this frontline tank that's able to outlast pretty much anything that you could think of, and that's exactly what we got to see here. Now, Shirayuki, meanwhile, has picked up that emblem, that spatula. If I had to guess, they are going to be going towards the nerfed true damage emblem just to give a little more power over to that Yasuo. That's still going to be effective, though, because again, the trait itself is still pretty good. It's just, again, moving things away from the strength of that emblem.
Moving away from the emblem, so the unit that gets the emblem is not going to be as powerful, but the true damage units are still very, very good. And of course, Yasuo being the focus, a true damage unit himself. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh no, spin. Well, you can ask me what you want, but first I got to point out the fact that Radiant Relics is what Spin to Block has picked up, and they picked up that Radiant Ginsu's Rage Blade. So if I've ever seen an angle of someone wanting to go for Twisted Fate, it's gonna be this one.
Completely agree. Perfect angle. And comboed with that Nasher suit, so really good. The Gunblade is not overhealing. It can be really good. Comboed with the Disco Healing as well, so the units just don't die and the TF can infinitely stack up the cards. So yes, a great angle as any ever. And we see the fight here between two players with so much HP. But that Aphidos is so slow.
Yeah, people underrate attack speed on Annie so much. Like, you hear me say this every week that we've casted together, Sir Black P. Attack speed equals mana generation, and Annie wants a lot of mana generation. She wants to get to that 4-cast threshold as quickly as possible so she can double cast. Not as strong on this patch at the end of the day, but still, even this 2-star tempo Annie that we're seeing right now for Spin to Block should be, knock on wood, more than enough for them to hit the win streak into Krugs.
And every single time the unit casts, Nasher Suit gives that big attack speed bump, which means more stacks coming into the Rage Blade. So powerful in that way.
I also have to apologize because I interrupted you like a unruly student, I suppose, and you, the teacher, the great professor, Sir Black P, wanted to ask me a question. So what is it?
Yeah, about the spatulas now, we see the change from Jazz into Country. We see the true damage being nerfed, so spatula used to be a high priority in any carousel. Do you think, I mean, it's two questions here, do you think it's still a priority to pick up for players, or maybe a little bit more situational? And which spatula is probably the strongest right now?
Oh, that is interesting. Now, I personally have been incredibly biased towards Country, if I got to just give a rambling and meandering answer, I suppose. Like, I really love the power that Country Spat is able to give. It opens up to a lot more consistency for Country 7, which, despite receiving a few minor nerfs in order to make it so it not as much of a powerhouse as it was historically when the emblem was incraftable, it still can really turn a fight. However, we don't see anything in the same vein of that true damage of last patch, where it really can just be, oh, you slam this, it works into whatever comp, I'll just play it. And that's just because true damage is just so versatile at the end of the day. So I think right now we're not seeing anything that sort of occupies that same state. But hey, if you want to go for Country Rule, if you want to try to hit 6 Punk, there are still good reasons to pick up the spatula.
Fully agree. Maybe not as much as a priority as it used to be, but still good outs if you do have the board situation for it. Let's put it that way. On our right side, we saw that Mr. Chabo already has Yasuo 2 on 3-1, so that's an interesting upgrade. Let's see whether that play does go for that Yasuo line all the way. And I was pointing out before a game start, if you do have that 8-bit start, stack it up, then maybe Caitlyn becomes a viable out. So let's see whether that's what comes from Batman's board.
Yeah, also at that Radiant Even Shroud as well, so that means they will have a pretty decent defensive option here too. Just allow both the Ribbon and the Yone to shred as it gets deeper and deeper into the game. Here though, look exactly what this Yasuo is doing here, just completely bypass this front line entirely. And now we even get to see the fact that despite being nerfed, it is still useful to get that true damage emblem.
That is the kind of Yasuo you'll never get on your team. But anyways, that's talking about another game. So we go back to TFT, and now on 3-2, we're going for the second augment. Can we get another prismatic and make things even more fun, or are we going to be slowing things down just a little bit? And it's a gold one.
Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, we got two silver into a gold in game one. Now we go with prismatic gold, more of a decrescendo right now, but hey, that's still going to be a pretty exciting thing at the end of the day here, and does open things up to a few different augment-dependent compositions. We'll have to see if any of these players find and then take Twin Terror, for example.
Oh, Unified Resistance. That's an augment I haven't seen as much nowadays. But still, very good, that extra defensiveness to all the units. And interesting slams here by Mr. Chavo. I was wondering whether the Yone might be the line to be played, but with those slams on the Yone, just not looking like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a little bit awkward here. Don't get me wrong, Adapted Helm is still going to be a good generalist item. It can go on either the back line or the front line, depending on what exactly you want at the time, but it's never exactly best in slot. It's just always a okay to have kind of alternative if you need to get rid of a tier and a cloak. So it will be good at least in the meantime. Just, again, it's a weird slam to see this early on.
I do gotta point out, we did have a bunch of cloak item buffs on the last patch, this being one of them. I still agree, it's a generalist item, it's not your focus most of the time, but it's better than it used to be. I would say mostly on par with the other options now.
Oh, and this is the thing that I had. A little birdie told me about this, and I wanted to make sure we were able to see it. And it looks like finally we've had a player bold enough to try to raise the stakes. So, for those of you who do not know, Heartsteel is mostly exactly the same. It's received a couple of nerfs along the way. But now, when you're ready to cash out, you have the option to get things going, get another 4 losses consistently, and you are going to get an even bigger prize. So we are going to have to see Not Exactly Bacon maintain this loss streak for a little bit longer if they want that ultimate win. However, it looks like Spin to Block is doing everything they can to make that a little bit more possible.
Maybe, but that Annie is deceptive. Doesn't look like it's that strong, but that game, that Radiant Rage Blade does so much. The stacking comes in so fast, and then she starts throwing that double fireball. And look at that, it's going to be 100. Oh, impossible to kill even the front line. Not Exactly Bacon taking so much damage. So he takes that one more loss now. And
this is
Shirayuki, the only one shrinking.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is still only 3 Heartsteel, so it means all that multiplication isn't exactly going to be working as deep into their favor. However, it will be enough for them to get any choice of item that they want. I think you were also excited about that spatula too, or at least that's what I think that sound was, because yes. I was seeing if there was going to be any kind of prioritization there. It looks like Mr. Chavo has instead picked that up.
A spatula on a 4 cost, so a lot of economy for Chavo, and the option to turn that spatula into something. The question is what exactly? As you pointed out in the Heartsteel comp there, as we were just watching, no oh my god, that word multiplication.
You're fine.
As great as you would love to, but still, I mean, it's going to be a decent cash out. And you do have the option to raise the stakes once again if you want to, right?
I don't think so. I think once you raise the stakes, you get to that next cash out and it just happens. And furthermore, okay. I feel like if you're willing to raise the stakes twice, you're a sociopath. That is absolutely terrifying to me. Just because you are maintaining an even deeper loss streak, and you could do it, but your health's going to be maybe like 20 or 10 HP by the time you get to enjoy anything.
Yeah, do gotta agree on that. Now let's see this Yasuo just farming out kills. It's great for Shirayuki to face off against a player like this because the Yasuo can farm stacks for himself. The Spoils of War can give some extra econ to Shirayuki, who is already level 7, by the way. Got blinked out at his second augment, so he has everything he wants to play that true damage line, though he did not find the 3-star Yasuo just yet, and he started to level, so wondering whether that Yasuo is going to happen or not.
Oh, apparently I was wrong. You can continue to raise the stakes if you are, in fact, that crazy. But instead, we are going to see the cash out, and this is going to be, I think, a little bit more of an awkward one with that Tome of Traits.
Okay, so we got an Akali. That's something, but still level 6. Do have the option to go 7 right now.
They need to try to get 8 synergies in as quickly as possible here to try to see if they can get direction in any which way. I think the emblem that I think of, and this is actually something I completely missed out when we were talking about our emblem discussion, was Pentakill. It is insane just to be able to confer that damage reduction. I've seen people throw it onto Blitzcrank to great effect. It's a good item for Akali as well, just because you're able to give her a little bit more survivability when she dashes into the backline. If we're posturing for the Pentakill, that could be a good out for not exactly Bacon.
You do get a headliner Poppy as well with the correct items and the Pentakill emblem. She can be a massive menace to the entire lobby as well.
Yeah, very curious to see. And no, I'm very happy I got to learn that you could, if you are so inclined, keep raising the stakes. It's just shaken me to my core because, again, I am certainly a player that would do that, but I'm also a player that should certainly never do that at the end of the day.
I mean, brings me back to those good old Fortune days.
Oh, yeah.
We go all the way down to just 1 HP, literally, and then make a massive comeback. That was so fun.
Let's get that 13 fight loss streak in order to get, was it triple radiant, I think, was at that level? Like, I forget. I know if you got like really low, you got some pretty nutty stuff. And same way here for Heartsteel. But again, lots of other things to sort of explore at the end of the day. Has a lot of active traits. We won't quite see how that's going to shake out with the Tome just yet, but we'll make sure production is able to keep us informed as we look at other boards. That's a really nice early pull there.
Hey, it's interesting that we did move away from the Yasuo, even though we had stacked him for a while, realizing staying down low level wasn't going to be as great. So we made the push here for changing up our true carry on this comp. So we have a very well built Akali there. We found the early Kiana as well. Oh, and talk about the Pentakill emblem and the Pentakill Akali for Mr. Chavo.
As predicted, we also have our pseudo Carpus in the backline in the form of the Ahri, so she's going to be doing everything she can to fill those shoes in the meantime, but really it is going to be the Akali show from this point forward. Has all of those pentatil damage resistances, might be able to 1 versus 3 if the dash comes through, but no, not this time around.
The red buff, although nerfed, still amazing item for the Akali. She uses that attack speed very well, and she procs the anti-healing Enderban on pretty much and everyone in the board, but a little bit of a healing lacking there for that Akali to be able to pull off that 1v3. Shirayuki is still streaking, the only one on fire in the lobby, and now we go back onto Prismatic.
Egg re-rolled immediately, no qualms there. Totally understandable. Do not pick Egg, it is so risky. Unless you are perhaps win streaking and prepared to go 8th at a moment's notice. Regardless of any of that though, still a lot of really powerful options here. Radiant Pandora's is always a delight. It gives you that Radiant Knight. You just have to make sure you get something you're willing to slam as quickly as possible. And onto the Akali, a Radiant Blue buff is excellent in terms of just making sure she can dash all over the place. Also get a free Executioner emblem, so this is going to be a pretty nutty board that we're building into.
I like it. I mean, not great Karthus items, only the Shojin. But still, and find a very early Yorick, that's really good as well. Maybe a Warmog's Slam, so a bit more of a front line that we can have here. We see August playing the Vex, playing the Twitch, but no Twin Terror, unfortunately. So even though he is re-rolling, as you can see, 3 Twitches away from the 3-star Twitch, 2 Pantheons away, he's just not in a good spot at all. The Twin Terror did not come up, and even though he threw all his coins into it, unfortunately did not pass on it.
Yeah, for lacking a headliner too, this is a really clean board that Not Exactly Bacon has been able to put together. Granted, it is still very early in stage 4. It is okay if they haven't found the 2 stars of their forecast just yet, but they are going to be outclassed pretty quickly. And this is the other thing I wanted to check out, because when the Echo was picked up as the headliner, they actually were able to immediately go into, I think, 7 Echoes off to the side. That's very quickly turned into a 3-star Echo at the end of the day here. So that's going to be incredibly powerful, especially combined with the blinged out bonuses.
Insanely powerful from sniper focus cards. That is insane. Casting onto a backliner, he gets so much amped up damage. Look at that Senna, almost killed, but the 2-star Raven made it all the way to the backline and was able to get the kill onto the enemy carry. Now we see the power of that Echo. Pretty much impossible to deal damage to. Remember, every time he's shielded, he's healing himself for a portion of his HP, so hard to kill.
And I will say really quickly, we are seeing a bit of a shift between Game 1 and Game 2. Game 1 was all about Disco. Disco is now dead. We have instead moved into the world of Metal with Pentakill, as Chabo, Bacon, Jackor, and Mac II all are running different variations. All are going to be contesting each other on those Karpus Akalis, and it's going to come down to who's able to hit first.
Fun things that we see in tournaments. We were wondering, are people gonna decide to pivot away from the Disco line and try something else? Yes, everybody did that.
Everyone will, yeah.
I mean, it happens. And it's cool to see Shirayuki finding a very different out, because with the nerf to the true damage emblem, the last thing you would expect is someone just going crazy on the true damage line, but he did, and is finding great success in it.
Yeah, and again, it's just another case of someone looking to avoid playing what the main course of the lobby is going to be. Could have very easily pivoted into Pentakill, tried to play around all of those damage resistances that comes through with it. But instead, they play it safe. They go for something that they know is going to be completely uncontested based on the read of the meta so far, and they've been rewarded for it. Ooh, and that's the Twitch free for August. That's going to be another nice pickup for them. Still no Twin Terror, but Twitch free is a terror in his own right.
That's true. 7 pentakills, so much damage reduction, so much damage amplification, and then 4 super fans giving a little bit of extra HP and healing to that Cardus. Look at this fight. It's a smash for the pentakills. They rock the enemy, and Yakor takes the loss. Mr. Chabo guarantees himself a little bit more time in this lobby. 21 HP to 3 players, and then 23 for August, 14 for Batman. This is a much closer lobby than the last one.
Yeah, but I feel like we're not really looking at the top of the leaderboard when we make that assessment, right? Because, 21 HP for 3 players, 20 free for August. Oh, what does Spin to Block have? Oh, 69 HP, 70 free for Coach Mac, and 84 win streaking Shirayuki. So as a result, that top of the leaderboard is looking incredibly solid right now, and we're going to start seeing some win streaks towards the bottom if they want to break in there.
3 players fighting for the top 1, 5 fighting for the top 4. Pretty much it's what we have right now, but things can change in a flick of a finger. And now we see Mr. Chabo once again, but now on the opposite side. August trying to make this Twitch happen, but it's not. It just got deleted by that Cardus, who smashes everything with his AoE, and now the Pentakill Akali finishes the job of killing the small things. August takes a big loss, goes down to 7 HP. Yakor also goes down to 9, and Batman is the first eliminated, doesn't even get to chickens.
Yeah, that is...
I forgot the true name.
Raptors, I believe, but that is really rough entry here, though, too. And also, it's going to be pretty rough for August as well. Looking at the board right now, they were able to hit that Twitch free, but haven't exactly been able to get good itemization for it. Everything has instead gone towards the Vex and the front line here, those 2 emo bastions that we kind of see all over the place at the end of the day. So hoping to see a couple of good options closing things out, but I don't think a tier and a bow are exactly what Twitch is looking for at this stage.
Yeah, and then items on both the 2-star units, not able to 3-star the itemized options, so very rough game.
Yeah, we're going to have to pop that final component anvil soon, because at the very least, there's a world where you just say, okay, cool, I get a Giant Slayer, so that way Twitch does that little bit more consistent damage. You could also, for example, try to see if you're able to go for maybe even a Spear of Shojin just for quicker casts, and it looks like, yeah, it's going to be the Giant Slayer at the end of the day.
Spindy Block was able to find a headline Blitzcrank, then playing that Rageblade TF, but still no 2-star TF. The Cyberbook, though, a lot of spread out components, being a lot of extra healing to his board, at least 2,500 extra HP to his board just off of the augments. And look at that fight. So much damage comes in from the Discos. August and Yakor are both gone in 7th and 6th place respectively. So now 5 players are going to be left into the game. Bacon facing off a Ghost and losing.
Yeah, just a really awkward position for August at the end of the day. They were working really effectively to play tempo through the mid game, but unfortunately, they started finding units that just weren't getting the itemization options down for. So that was going to be a pretty rough thing to come back from. Switching over to what not exactly Bacon is up to, as perhaps things are beginning to narrow a little bit, as for now, only a 36 HP gap. I mean, that can't be that far, right? So anything here at the end of the day, Bacon is now doing everything they can to try to rock out with their own pentakill board, has hit the Karthus 2, has hit the Akali 2, should give them a pretty decent up over this, despite Radiant still 1-star Twisted Fate.
To be fair, at this stage of the game, 36 HP, not that far. In 2 fights, that gap can be closed really soon. Now we see the Akali trying to go into the TF, but was very well positioned by the block, though not enough. The Akali still able to get the kill, and as expressive and definitive win by Bacon over the block. We'll see Chavo, can he survive, or is our top 4 set? No, he does survive. 10 HP there. 12 for Bacon. That Radiant Blue buff to Akali means she instantly casts and drops aggro. So her positioning doesn't really matter aside from which side she's on.
Not to mention the fact that it just gives her a lot of really decent stats. The AD-AP combo that comes in from the Radiant Blue buff is just useful for both sides of her KDA ability. On top of that too, it not only means that she casts instantaneously, it means that her subsequent casts are that little bit quicker. And everyone loves that free damage bonus that you also get at the end of the day as well. So everything really does work together to make this Akali even more powerful. And I'd say with 12 HP versus 10, I don't think we're seeing 2 players walk out of here alive.
Artus versus Cortus, Chavo versus Bacon. Who is going to survive? Who is going to be eliminated? Our top 4 is going to be set, and things are not looking that good for Bacon. Chavo's board on level 9, 1 level plus, is much stronger. And Bacon gets completely demolished by this Devil Teemo. And Bacon is gone, so now 4 players remain. Chavo is able to defeat the one contesting him.
That's a little bit rough for Not Exactly Bacon. Remember, they were a 2nd place player in game 1, now going all the way down to 5th in game 2. That's still a nice meat shot in the middle of the pack, though. That will make sure they have pretty good points coming out of block 1 and heading into block 2 of our first week of the AML, but not probably exactly where they want to finish momentum-wise in this lobby.
Yakor was also our top 1 in the last lobby, finished 6th this time around, so things just switching around completely on who is at the top and who's at the bottom after game 1. Now we see D-Block making it to level 9. Can Shirayuki get to 9 true damage here? I don't think he can, right? Needs 1 more spat.
Yeah, it's always going to be such a tricky thing. They did mess around with the true damage breakpoints, I believe, but they've also, again, they nerfed it in a few different places, made it a little bit harder to hit also at the same time. So
the thing is, we found 2-star Kiana without even needing to use our champ duplicators. Still 2 of them at the bench, the smaller one and the bigger one. So that is a massive hit by Shirayuki, who is destroying opponents. This 2-star Kiana, even with the nerf that she got, doesn't matter. She still deals bonkers amounts of damage. And Shirayuki very close to getting to that 3-star Riven now, which is going to be a 3-star true damage Riven.
And remember, she's still going to be able to print items here and there, which synergizes so nicely with Blinged Out at the end of the day. Get even more bonus stats around, even after the creep rounds start moving away. But now we get to see Spin to Block again has not managed to hit the chosen Twisted Fate up until now. Actually, there's the headliner that we've been looking for. Already moved that Radiant Ginsu's over onto a Sona, which hasn't seen as much play on this patch so far. Lots of different changes have sort of come on through. Curious to see exactly where it's going to land and how this board's going to look as we go into potentially their last fight.
Yeah, weird board, no front line, no 5 disco. Things are looking rough, and this Akali is gonna get a very easy job with 2 radiant items going all the way onto the TF already. No, oh, actually, she went onto the Sona, but still, she can get some kills there. The Sona for now survives. Is the Cardo's ability gonna be able to destroy everyone?
No one's on TF.
Focus. Look at that, TF still surviving far. The cards are coming in. The Akali is dying, and that is a very close fight, but it does go in favor of Spinny Block. Mr. Chavo is gone, and now only 3 players remain.
I was going to say, Spin to Block threads the needle each time. Twisted Fate just avoiding the targeting of the Karthus. I was really surprised by that. The Akali had a decent angle to get onto the Twisted Fate, but instead gets mucked up and instead goes onto the Sona at the end of the day. So that is going to be a pretty interesting move here, and it will be enough for Spin to Block to move into a 3rd place position.
Now 3 players remain. Spinny Block playing this TF. Shirayuki with his massive true damage board, being able to hit the 3-star Raven before the last round started. Getting that 2-star Kiana early on as well, which was a big hit. Now Mac the second finds his level 9, so he's going to be able to slot in 1 extra unit to the board.
Also has greater odds of trying to find their own Yorick at the end of the day, which has thus far eluded them. But everything else here, don't really see anything too exciting. There is an increased number of Karfusipo on the bench right now, so maybe we could see that as an option for an out. But again, they could just as easily be just trying to contest Shirayuki as well.
Very interesting to slot in a Sona onto the comp, but wasn't able to sell anything, didn't have the go to it. Still picking up items mid-fight. Spinny Block can be eliminated here if Mac the second's board does its correct job. The Akali was not able to go all the way into the TF, but the Cardo's damage was able to kill it. Now look at this Akali with a Radiant Edge of Night, so powerful. Spinny Block takes the loss, survived a little bit more than expected, maybe having a hard time finding a 2-star TF, and when he did, had to sacrifice a 2-star frontline. So all in all, 3rd place, great achievement there, and now 2 players remain with Shirayuki and Mac the second facing off.
Yeah, really curious to see exactly which way it's going to go. We are going to be able to find a 2-star 5 cost, but when how do I word this in a gentle and delicate kind of way? There aren't exactly a lot of items or clothing on that 2-star 5 cost. I don't expect to see it do too much right now.
Yeah. Good wording on it. Now, Mac the second and Shirayuki both at very high HP, 62 and 53. This 1v1 is gonna go on for a little bit, but now we gotta see who is the more dominant force, or maybe is this a very close fight between the 2 of them. We see that Echo is really hard to kill, but that card just does a lot of damage, so the fight is decently close. There is a chance for both players, but for now, Shirayuki is the one ahead.
Perhaps I judge this Kane too harshly, especially because his friend Kiana was able to just give him a lot of items to hold on to help preserve that life into the end stages of that fight. So that was, at the very least, a pretty useful thing. And the Morels is always just nice to get that anti-heal spread across as many of these targets as possible.
Talking about giving items, maybe not as smart to put the rod onto the king, since maybe that's gonna make him not get a 3rd item. Of course, it's a bit of an RNG, but yeah, there's a chance of that happening. Now, the two radiant items coming on the enemy Akali there is very important as well. If they are good enough, that Akali can do a hell of a job just by herself. Now we see the Riven trying to do some damage there. The Echo impossible to kill now. The Riven can, she casts one more time. She can deals decent damage. The Akali is able to finish off the Riven this time around. We just
Echo's healing so much.
Scrap of HP. Now Echo is healing, but he's gonna be the 1v1 against that enemy Karthus. Can this damage and the 1 second stun from the Echo be enough for him to get the win, or is the overtime damage going to be enough for that card to still delete? Look at that! And the true damage from the Echo gets the win. Shirayuki is still ahead in this 1v1.
The Archangel works in the Karthus' favor. However, the Sniper's focus actually works against it. You have to worry about the Echo right up in your face. You're losing so much of that damage amp that is poured into that third item slot, where if you saw, for example, a Rabadon's Death Cap or a Jeweled Gauntlet, that would have, I think, been able to at least make that fight that little bit closer, a little bit more consistently. Now, though, this Kayn, fully clothed, fully itemized, has a lot of stuff going for him. Curious to see if that will be enough to continue this streak, or if, I mean, I don't want to put anything out there to you. Like this, that would be very exciting.
I mean, that would be there is chance the fights are close, so the game might last long enough.
Part of me wants to say you almost dropped the Garen in order to run double Kiana. However, you're losing a lot of Sentinel value. That's a lot of effective HP against all these targets, and they need every drop of that effective HP they can in order to stand up to the Karthus for as long as possible.
True, I was gonna say especially because the fights were being close, but now the fight was not close at all. With these extra items coming onto the Kayn, the fight became so much better in Shirayuki's favor, and he just deleted the opposition.
Yeah, still rolling. See if maybe there's a sign to maybe so bored, look for that Kiana. But again, if you're not able to find a random Kiana here or there, you're just not getting enough information to try to go for something that wild. So end of the day, it looks like Shirayuki gonna do everything they can to try to get things going, try to see what they can do. And it looks like the odds were at the very end just to put in that second Kiana overall.
Makes sense. Second Kiana can do a little bit of extra there, get a little bit extra items and components, smack the seconds. Board is really trying, but unfortunately it's so many components. It's three two-star legendaries in favor of Shirayuki. He played with majestic ability around this true damage line. A line that no one thinks about, a great out of everybody else in the lobby, and that means he gets the top one this time around.
And this is what I say this is what I mean when I say every comp is viable right now. It doesn't matter if you see a nerf next to its name in the patch notes, there are still a lot of options that let you do some pretty insane things with them. The thing that I would say that hurt the Karthus the most here was actually going to be that Sniper's focus. It was able to hold off for a long time, but Karthus really needs all these multiplicative damage sources to work together in his favor, and he just wasn't able to get that in the same way in these last couple of fights. Still though, it still rocketed that Karthus to second place. That is a pretty good place to be in at the end of the day, and yeah, just more points to seeing things like true damage.
Still a great itemization on the cards nonetheless. Was able to get so many damage, especially on those TFs. We stay all the way to the backline far away from the Karthus. But nice play by Shirayuki, was able to get in that Kiana and like maybe 3-4 whole items above the competition. It just gets too impossible to deal with. So that was a nice win on his part. And now, seeing so many outs, seeing so many different things, we are also going to see different faces coming into cast after a short break. That was it from me and ProTroid this time around. So thank you, ProTroid, for once more a great dual casting.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure casting with you. And do you have anything you want to shout out, actually, my friend, before we go?
Nothing special. Just gonna shout out everyone here in the team. Great to be back on the Aegis League and see them full steam once again.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of similar sentiments. I love working with Aegis. It's phenomenal to work with so many commentators, build up this group of TFT players, and it's just a fantastic community to be in. I also have to be selfish this time because you know me, Sir Blackpea. I don't usually go on my own Twitch stream. I'm usually found in places like here or Tactician's Crown with Gangly and all that fun stuff. But this week's going to be a little bit different for me. If you tune in to twitch.tv/Protroid, I'm going to be co-streaming TOC7. So all the action going on at the international tournament taking place in China, I'll hopefully be bringing you an English perspective to try to go through and break down exactly what the heck is going on.
So everyone watching, be sure to check that out because it's going to be amazing. Now, that was it for us. 2 new faces coming into cast for you the next 2 games after today. See ya and thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to week 1 of the Aegis Marauder League. I am Rain101, joined by the Purple Pouring, who's always ready to party, and we are here for games 3 and 4 of this first week. Purple Pouring, I know you were in the chat, you were watching the games. What did you think of the first couple of games and how it reflects the way players might be playing this first week?
Yeah, I think it was a pouring party. But I think we see a lot of what we would see on the ladder, which is essentially about 5 different comps. There's Disco, there's Akali Karthus Pentakill, there's Riven. I didn't actually see a Yone last game, but it's floating out there somewhere, I'm sure. And then there's Twin Terror if someone actually gets that augment. If they don't and they try to play anyway, we see them go 7th like August did. But
sure.
Yeah, it's basically those 5 comps, and then a smattering of other comps like the Seraphine reroll. So I'm glad to see other things happening because I don't want every single game to literally just be Karthus versus TF. But we'll see what happens.
Sure. I think that the meta diversity in this particular patch is still kind of being sorted out, but there's so many different options that people can play. I think that there's a lot of skill expression, and we've seen it just in the first 2 games where people lean really heavily one way and then lean really heavily a different direction. And I think by the end of the day, we're going to have seen, like you said, Yone, Country, a lot of other things start to bubble up as people say, okay, I know what everybody's been playing. I've got to find a different tack. I've got to go a different route. Interestingly enough, haven't seen a lot of Heartsteel sort of openers being played. We saw that being really popular so far in this set, but less so even with the changes. Do you see people angling for that line a little more, or are people shying away from it?
I think people will play whatever. One is whatever they get during the game, and then the other thing is whatever they're comfortable with, right? Like if someone's grinded ladder for 200 games and they've played Pentakill all 200 games, they're probably going to angle towards Pentakill every single time they can, even if their board state is not optimal to it. But for the flex players, I think if they get Heartsteel on 2-1, they'll play that. And if they get a bunch of Seraphines and a Seraphine headliner, they'll play that. So it just depends on the type of player that we have in the lobby that we're going to see.
Sure, and we have players who have a lot of skill. I was looking at our lobby and the participants in it a little earlier, and we have some real ladder grinders, people who have been pushing into Master, GM, really trying to sort of maximize their exposure to this set. So I think, we might find ourselves a little surprised in terms of people being able to flex into stuff we haven't seen yet today. Ezreal, maybe even Viego, whatever sort of comes their way. And I think that's one of the best things about this patch and this set is it does really incentivize saying, okay, this is what the game's giving me. I'm not going to look for direction. I'm going to take the direction the game gives me. And that's what separates, really high level players from people who are maybe learning those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. I also see a lot more content on Twitter these days about various regions, various comps. There's one guy, Clement, that posts a lot of stuff about Vietnam, China, and Taiwan servers. And he's the one that came up with, this, I guess, popularized the Seraphine reroll, probably. Right.
We are coming in here now into the third game of this first week, and three-cost champion, multi-talented, and larger legends on the docket. I think multi-talented is one of those that a lot of people love, but not everybody wants to play in a tournament setting. So we are going to wind up with the three-cost champion starter.
Yep, totally agree. There are portals that are very much for fun. Multi-talented is actually somewhere in the middle. It doesn't change things as much as, say, Showtime. But three-cost champion is one of the more generic ones. So I think that it's more suitable for league play.
Sure, and it can give you direction, or it can just give you 3 extra gold that you didn't have before. I've seen a lot of players sort of just say, whatever it gives me, I'm selling it. I'm going to make 10 as soon as I can, especially with the econ changes in this most recent patch. There, is a high incentive to take that gold and run.
Yeah, last patch you'd just see everyone sell it and everyone open for it. This patch, a little more decisions to be made, but you can go for that 10 gold. You can play it. It's just totally up to you what you get, what direction you want to go. So a lot more skill expression at stage 1 and 2 with that extra unit.
Yeah, and Chabo here getting that early pentakill with that Kale drop, which is, a pretty good direction. No headliner for it, but does pick up this super fan Kennen, which is a very strong early game unit. It has been all set.
Yeah, it could go either way with this. Obviously, you want to play a headliner if you can to boost your board. If you're not going to go for that loss streak, either 3 pentakill or this 3 super fan would work out. Let's see what items he gets, because that could also change the direction that he's going for.
Sure. I've seen this superfan line be really good and played into Ahri, but from what I've seen on the ladder and certainly what we've seen in this tournament so far, Ahri not a very popular choice. So it'll be interesting to see, having picked up a sword, belt, and bow, where they're going to go. Speaking of where they're going to go, we have Bacon with 4 true damage in on 2-1. Looking at their augment choices, 1s, 2s, 3s is what it seems like they might be leaning towards, but risky moves always on the table.
Yeah, 1s, 2s, 3s, a lot of gold if you don't want those units. Risky moves, also a lot of gold, just at the cost of a bunch of HP. Takes the item, which is always a very generically decent move.
Sure.
Keeps your options totally open.
Well, in playing true damage, having items early on to empower your units, a pretty sensible choice. Whether you're going to stay in this true damage line or not, it does spike your board right now, giving Echo that true damage bonus, allowing us to slam that Jeweled Gauntlet on the Senna, giving her a little less mana that she has to deal with to deal out that damage. Hitting that Echo early, we can see just the impact of it, dropping that CC onto the front line. And are they going to be able to weather this BT on the Olaf? And it does look like they can. This Lux has been doing her best to pick off these backliners, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And Papalev takes 2 units worth of damage here.
Yeah, they buffed Lux, so you can actually play her on 2-1, and she will kill some units, like she did. But it's still not the best unit in the world, so it gets a couple of kills, but takes the loss.
And finding this early Amumu as well, being able to slot in now that Guardian on to the true damage Kennen, buffing your strong units, turns out is a pretty good thing. So seems like a pretty big hit here. We saw that Amumu can carry you through a lobby if you're able to get this thing upgraded.
Yeah, absolutely. Amumu, just a very good unit to begin with, and along with the Guardian and the 4 true damage, I think this is a very strong stage 2 board. Generally.
And we see Soak here with this Bard in the back line, just sort of chopping out the dudes. Kind of interesting, taking Pumping Up has this Tom Kench front line, but you have to think like, okay, are we angling for country? Is this going to be a transition into something else? Soak not really giving us a whole lot of direction. And how do you feel about that pouring when you start off and you're like, I don't know what to do with this? How do you play around a directionless sort of early game?
I mean, it's good and it's bad, right? Because you keep your options flexible. You're able to play what you hit. If you're at level 7, you hit a bunch of Yones and a headliner, you just go for that. But it does feel really bad because you're slamming that one bow on that one unit at the back. It's not going to be able to, get you that many wins. You're probably going to lose streak for a bit before you find that direction. So there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah, and loss streaking being de-incentivized in a way that it hasn't been for a long time with the changes to streaks that we saw in this patch. It feels a lot more frustrating to find yourself in a position where you're taking 5 losses and you're still not even getting like full streak value from it. I think, obviously, more often than not, you want to win, right? You want to win more than you lose, but certainly on this patch, even more so that you want to win more than you lose, get that extra gold, streak as much as you can on the winning side, because you have to hit that 6 losses in a row to get the full value.
Yeah, for sure. You get the gold for winning. You get the streak gold for winning. If you lose, you're just, you're not getting gold, and then you have to decide whether you want to lose that 3-1 or if you want to actually, make a board and try to win. And if you do a 6 loss streak, you're probably sitting at like 860 HP there.
Yeah, and that's a pretty frustrating spot to be in for sure as we come up on this first carousel with Slip and Slides taking that bow. Bow, sword, tier continue to be very, very popular items in the current meta, enabling that TF, enabling a lot of different units that can use AD, can use mana generation. I don't know the last time I saw a set where, Blue Buff and Shojin were so sort of like mandatory slams regardless of the patch.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you get a sword and a tier on stage 1, you always slam Shojin and you just play around that. Last patch, definitely you're never like angry to get 2 tiers like you are some previous sets because you just slammed that blue buff. You play it on like 5 different units.
Yeah, Slip and Slides here with that Corky that we've seen be so strong throughout the entire patch, and Shogun very clearly sort of angling for this TF board that we've seen be so popular. Not a lot of surprises so far in this game. Now, for the most part, we are seeing different players than we saw in the first 2 games. I think only Bacon and one more who were in the previous lobby. So, the way that we saw a few games and we saw things shake out a certain way, and now we come into this lobby and we might see completely different outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. We might see very similar comps being played. We might see completely different comps being played. Right now, obviously, Disco, one of the most popular comps on ladder in the meta. So not surprised to see it. Not surprised to see people just slamming TF items and angling towards TF. But other people are playing Flex right now, it seems, at least. Or maybe they just haven't hit anything.
We've talked about popular comps, but the real question is, what's your favorite song? What soundtrack do you vibe to? Because we could talk about comps all day, TF, this, that, and the next thing. But are you a disco enjoyer, or what's your deal? I'm
a KDA enjoyer and a hyperpop enjoyer. How about you?
Oh, hyperpop is so good. One of my favorite things is when sometimes the audio will bug out and just the hyperpop line will play into like dead silence, and it's just a vibe, man. It's so good. I'm a big fan. I think the disco track is an absolute jam, but the country I think is actually my favorite. I like the sort of twanginess of it.
Yeah, totally understandable. It's one of those things that's not really for me, but I think country and jazz are on the lower tier of things just because of my personal, preferences in terms of music. But everyone has different tastes, right? So, and there's something for everyone here. That's one of the great things about this set.
Sure. I think that that jazz take is a bit of a hot one. I think a lot of people really vibing with the jazz in this set. if they're still listening to the music at all, if you have played hundreds of games, I can see how it could get a little bit tedious. But I actually, after turning off my music for a little while, was kind of like, okay, I'm ready for it again, and turned it back on, and it all just slaps. It's so good. The Riot team has done an incredible job this set with the music and making sure that it all kind of layers together in such an interesting way. I think a real triumph.
Yeah, everything works perfectly, and it's so good to have like this base game that, the gameplay we can talk about forever and everyone enjoys and all of that stuff. Well, not everyone, but most
Right.
people for the most part enjoy. But then there's this underlying layer of like all this music that they put in and how it works with different comps that you put together, and it's just super enjoyable on a level that's like, well, you don't even have to play the game to enjoy all this.
Yeah, and that's one of the most incredible things is you could probably just like kind of chill if they had the soundtracks available. If give us the stems, Riot. Some of us want to make remixes, but if you wanted to, you could probably just if it was on Spotify, chill and put on the Set 10 playlist and have a really nice time. Kathy Barra here also thinking about having a really nice time slotting in this Spellweaver Seraphine. I think the KDA one is preferred for the reroll, so we'll have to see if this is something that they're maybe thinking about or not. Oh well, they have 6 of them. It looks like they're just digging for something. I don't know. Rolling down to 10 gold here seems pretty deep. How do you feel about rolling down that far at this stage of the game?
Yeah, so I have played like a ton of Seraphine reroll games. I went, top 4 some games and 8 some other games. The Spellweaver one is clearly weaker than the KDA one, just because of the late game synergies that you're going to end up with like 4 Spellweaver or and 4 KDA and stuff like that, right? But rolling down to 10 here and only hitting 6 Seraphines and not being able to play your headliner because your items are on that non-headliner Seraphine feels really terrible.
Yeah, and luckily enough, they are able to pull off the win here, which must feel good because rolling down this deep and losing would be an FF angle for me personally.
Definitely, and especially if you saw that other board, they had Last Stand, so they're playing down an entire augment. So if you're losing against that and you're at 10 gold, that would be FF and not in leagues obviously because you don't want to FF in the league, but on ladder it would be a very much a FF angle.
Yeah, are you ever pulling this Evelyn out for your headliner? Because it does seem like the Evelyn here is not doing as much as it could. Maybe they're wanting to hold it on their bench in case they want to sell it. I'm not really sure what the angle is there.
Yeah, I think you're deep enough in that you just have to play this at this point, because if you try to switch to something else, you're like it's not going to work. You have Seraphine items, you have 6 Seraphines, you're already holding the headliner for like 2 turns, you're wasting a bunch of gold. I would take the Evelyn out. I think 2 Seraphines, especially the headliner one, would just be better than 3 KDA, but he's winning fights, so
yeah,
might know more than me.
Hey, if it works, it works, I suppose. As we're coming up now on this second carousel of the game, lobby looking pretty tight. I mean, there's no like clear outliers other than Papa Lev still sitting at 96 HP and a streak, but for the most part, 60s, 70s, and 80s, like a temperate weather forecast. No clear sort of like front runners. We haven't seen everybody's board, but it is interesting to me that we've seen, we've looked around and we've seen obvious sort of like we've seen Seraphine, we're seeing, the Pentakill, Akali, Karthus line coming online here for Nada. Some of the usual suspects are starting to rear their heads.
Yeah, and it's still good because there's a variety, at least, in the usual suspects that we're seeing, rather than just like 4 people trying to play Pentakill. So always good to see that. And yeah, this Pentakill Edgelord board right now is pretty strong for where it is currently. Obviously, a couple of units that you don't really want to keep playing if you don't have to, but for the moment, it seems good.
Yeah, as we've got this sort of mirror match between Bacon and Nada, having that Karthus with the adaptive, getting that big chunk of damage in, Nada does look like they're going to be able to pull this one off, delivering Bacon a loss right as they're coming up on a Heartsteel cash out of 82, which is I think about a 14 gold value. So maybe Bacon will take this cash out and be able to push their game in a different direction.
Yeah, or maybe they will raise the stakes and make it fun. But I think they probably actually wanted to lose that to get to that 80 threshold.
Speaking of, there it is. They do not raise the stakes. They say, no, I will take that, and I'm off to the races, leveling to almost 7 here. Right towards the end, they're going to get a free shop, level 7 shop reroll. With that, the potential for that increased headliner odds.
I don't think it's going to matter that much because he has a headliner in the shop right now, and he has a headliner on the board. So, I
didn't see before we loaded in whether whether they'd sold their headliner or not. They had not. So yes, you're right. It doesn't matter at all. Ignore me.
Yeah, although you're not really looking for a headliner on level 7 when you're playing Pin to Kill anyway. So that's. You're just trying to stabilize to get to 8 for that Karthus or that Viego.
Sure. Bacon taking another loss here, dropping down to 51. And now we are starting to see a little bit of striation. Papalev, who was sitting at 96 just a couple turns ago, now has dropped down to 78. They did lose that streak. Soak here has got this headliner crowd diver Yone. You were talking about it at the beginning of our cast. We haven't seen any Yones, but they're out there. And it turns out with 3 champion duplicators on bench, the Yone is out there and it's on Soak's board.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he didn't hit. So.
Yeah, the best case scenario is getting even more dupes here. It could happen. You never know. It could happen. It doesn't. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't. And he also didn't get a sword, so that's got to feel a little bad.
Mm-hmm. Rolling it down here, looking for, okay, there's the one in the shop. You need a few more than that. No matter how many duplicators you have on your bench, that'll go a long way. And there they are. And Yone 3 on 4-1 is not a bad spot to be in. It's pretty okay. Yeah. It's pretty okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
I'm sure he's happy with it.
And we're going to see how that plays out against this Risky Moves board with the Zed, which we haven't seen a lot of lately. I think Zed has been one of those underrated units pretty much the entire set. Certainly, this patch has found a place here and there in niche cases, but Zed1 versus Yone 3 is not going to be much of a fight at all, as Soak is absolutely able to devastate Chab here, and you have to start thinking, starting up their win streak here.
Yeah, I figured that board will be fairly boring to watch up until like stage 5, maybe, because at that point you might see a couple of changes. But now we roll into the last augment.
Yeah, as Shogun here taking the gloves and running it to the bank, they slam them onto the Gragas, and now level 8 rolling down looking for this TF, upgrades the Amumu. Not exactly what you're looking for, not a great headliner for what they were trying to do, but you take it in this spot, but doesn't have any money to put. You have to think they like to buy this Yorick, maybe slot this Akullion, but unfortunately had to roll it all down and slot in this Jinx, because sure.
Yeah, it's a unit. It's a unit. You get 2 punk. You get a 1 gold reroll next turn. It's something. This is clearly not a spot that he wanted to be in, but this is what happens with the level 8 roll downs. You get to level 8, you have like 30 gold, you roll, and especially if you're not paying close attention to some of those headliner rules that existed at least before, there's a big chance that you're just not going to hit the units that you need.
Yeah, and pulling this Ari, it's great. It stabilizes your board, but it also means it's going to be 4 more shops before you even have a chance of finding that TF chosen, unless you sell this upgraded unit that is holding all of your items. It does lock for the Akali, so maybe thinking about just straight pivoting into, hey, I found Ari, I've got pretty decent items for her. Maybe TF shows up later, but for now, get KDA in and play what the game gives me.
Yeah, this really isn't bad. He's at 72 HP. He's first in the lobby right now. As long as you have a stable board, there's bound to be other people that didn't hit, and this could either lead to a top 4, or eventually he gets that TF and spikes it back up to a first.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, and he's got this upgraded Gragas, which is, I think, one of those underrated tank units in this set. Really has been very sort of disco dependent. When disco is in favor, you see Gragas played a lot. When it's not, you don't. But it is giving that spell waiver. It does have those sort of blacksmith's gloves on it, and with the anima, with its built-in healing, and of course the ability for this Spellweaver Ari to just ramp up with the Archangels, with the Spellweaver AP, just outputting so much damage as that Gragas is able to stall infinite.
Yeah, that Gragas had some lucky gloves there with those items. Pretty good.
Coming up, yeah, this last carousel, we see the Jhin with a bow, which in a different world would be one of the most oh my god, I have to take this immediately. Jhin getting hit pretty hard in this patch. Haven't seen him played that much, and I feel like 5 costs this set have just been sort of hit or miss. You've had Kiana, who's really strong and pretty much played all the time and is still pretty strong, but a lot of these sort of backline carry 5 cost carries haven't really been that popular this set.
Yeah, and I think it's because of the strength of the three cost and 4 cost, especially with the headliners. You can see a headliner 4 cost so easily. You just have a 2-star on the board with an extra bonus on it that you don't really need to get to the 5 costs unless you're really trying to cap out that board for the first.
Now we have the battle of the 3-cost, 3-star 3 costs with this Yone coming up against the Jazz Misfortune, and MF was really popular. This sort of line of Jazz MF was really popular early on in the set. Ate some pretty hard nerfs, and I've seen it coming back a lot. This is one of those comps that we didn't really talk about as being popular or meta, but every time I've seen it on someone's board, whether it's in my lobby or watching streams or in this tournament, it seems to do really, really well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those probably B+ tier comps right now, but because MF, Bard, and all those 2 main carries are so uncontested that it's so easy to hit them, especially when you have other people going for Riven, other people going for Yone, that you hit that 3-star 3 cost and it'll get you a top 4.
Yeah, and we can see here they've got 6 Kennen, they've got 6 Bards, they've got the Lesser Duplicator on bench. They have a lot of sort of uncontested units that they can hit and hit those massive upgrades. And one of the things that this build really needs is that stall. Every comp needs good frontline, but this MF really wants a lot of frontline to help her ramp up to be able to spread that damage around as they're coming up against this Gragas with diamond hands now. And you could see this Echo being able to sort of hold out. This Gragas or the CC coming through gives this MF a little bit of time to work up, but now it's the Kaisa battle at the end.
1v1.
If Slip and Slides can get a little bit more on this front line, I think they're going to have a real shot at a top 2, top 3 from this spot.
Yeah, that Echo's 1-star, that Nico's 1-star. There's plenty to upgrade still on that board, and they're very healthy. Once they get it, I can definitely see them getting a top 2 there.
Mr. Chabo here with that headliner Viego, a different line than we've seen often with Pentakill, going towards that Akali, Karthus, this being the sort of AD version of that, right, where you get this Viego who is hitting that huge AoE and just obliterating front lines, working into the back lines and obliterating them. Not as popular today, but certainly a great choice. They have the IE if they want it to really crank out that damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably just go ahead and build that IE. Right now, they have their carry is Viego, right? Like they don't have the Karthus in the back at all. Like not even a 1-star to help with the taking care of the units after Viego slams down on them. So this is a very interesting variation of the 7 Pentakill comp, and I'm really curious to see how it does.
Yeah, it does actually choose to go with the Edge of Night there to ensure the survivability of this unit for a little bit longer. It will drop aggro when it starts to get a little low, allowing it to kind of heal back up and do more work. And we can see here already against this TF who tends to burst down melee carries. Everybody in the front line just melts on those first couple of casts. Viego says, nope, you're not going to get me that easy. And the Viego is able to pull off the win there, getting into that TF's face. I think an interesting item slam there, maybe for that exact reason. Like there's going to be TFs, there's going to be all this damage. I need to make sure this thing lives and can get into the back line to do that damage. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm curious about that slam, but it definitely worked out that fight, and I want to see if it works out in other fights. Just because usually you want damage because if Viego doesn't kill anyone, then you're kind of screwed. But he's got Viego, he's got Thresh. There's a lot of survivability there, and he'll eventually kill the units.
Yeah, we do have Kathy here who does have that Seraphine 3 that we were talking about earlier. Was able to get that online after sitting on 6 for quite some time. Now that we check back in, they were able to slot in that Alawi. They're level 8 here. They've got all of that front line to allow this Seraphine to just kind of hang out in the back and lob those bombs all over. And they were talking about in the first couple of games, this comp in particular benefiting from this clump meta, right, with so many disco players tending to be in the lobby, and Seraphine just eats up against those, being able to drop those big AoE bombs into those big clumps of units.
Yeah, we see them on an 11 win streak. That's amazing for a Seraphine comp, and that Alawi is going to allow them to potentially get a first out of it, just because those tentacles will eat Akali dashes, they will eat Karthus casts, so very big hit for them.
Chavo here on the last stand, having procced at 1 HP here with the double Archangel's Karthus in the back line. The Viego is kind of dashing around, stuck on these frontliners. Is the Karthus going to be able to get this cast off? It is, but is it enough? The Viego lives, and this is exactly what we're talking about. The Viego is able to live on the back of that Edge of Night and then get into that Karthus' face, secure the win, and knock Mr. Chavo out in 7th place.
Yes, absolutely. That is the upside and downside to playing Pentakill. Sometimes Karthus will just blast units, and then other times he'll just sit there, and then you're 3 seconds into the cast, and then he just dies.
And we see Kathy here pulling this red buff, which I think is interesting because she has the Morello on the Seraphine, but having that red buff, just a little bit of attack speed here for that Sona, allowing her to get more casts off quickly. Does have that 5 Spellweaver we were talking about. The Spellweaver is a little less preferred than the KDA line. Here, Kathy able to make it work, getting that 5 Spellweaver, but only 4 KDA. If they're able to go 9, maybe they can slot in that 5th KDA and complete that power spike.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably what they plan to do. They're not rolling for any more REs. They're just sitting on their gold right now and seeing if they can get up to 9.
Yeah, again, we're going to have to see if this Viego can get into that back line and put that damage out. It does start to inch towards that Seraphine, but Edge of Night procced and then burst down regardless. That Edge of Night maybe you kind of wish you had a little bit more damage on Viego that time around to be able to polish off some of those units. Instead, gets CC'd and gets burst down. And Kathy continuing their streak as we move over to Soak, who is in 18 HP, not in the exact spot I expected them to be, but they are on this 4 streak. This Yone does now have the 3 items on them. What can they do to improve their board from this spot?
I think the 5 pentakill is sort of not doing a whole lot here. I think that's the main thing, right? The 4 crowd diver, he kind of high rolled the crowd diver Yone because that's the best variation of him. But he's unable to place 6, and I think the Karthus in the back, the 1-star Viego, all the pentakill units just aren't really doing a whole lot here.
Yeah, and the Seraphine board that we've been sort of talking about all day here, able to pull off another win, dealing a bunch of damage to Soak, who drops to 7 HP. Shogun and Nada at 1 and 2 HP respectively. We're getting very, very dangerously close to a top 4, but looking at Shogun, they did have Last Stand. It did proc. They do have Jin 2. This is a pretty dangerous looking board in some respects, but also Alawi 1, Fresh 1, Akali 1. There's a lot of unupgraded units on this board.
Yeah, that Jin also is holding some very interesting items, obviously AP items, but Jin headliner with AP items, you're still happy enough with that. It's just I have no idea where this is actually going to end up because it's so weird.
Well, they do hit snipers, double snipers focus Akali too. Yay! Taking the even shroud here from the spot, slapping it on the Mumu is going to empower these Jin bolts when they can get them online. AP or no, what this Jin does have is a lot of mana generation and attack speed, which is going to allow him to get those turrets online really, really quickly so that he can benefit from that even shroud. But coming up here against this Karthus 2, against this Viego that we've seen so much, Jin does have all 4 turrets online. It is targeting the Viego. It switches off after proccing Edge of Night and now is back on. The Viego is going to go down. Is the Jin going to have enough damage over enough time to kill these units? 1, 2, no, he gets CC'd by the Vex, and that is gonna be it for Shogun and Nada both, and Soak going out 9, 11, and 12. We have a top 3 all in one go.
Wow. Yeah, three deaths on one round. I'm sure Soak is amazingly happy that he ended up with that 4th. Every time there's one of these lobbies where there's multiple people at single-digit health, you're just you hope you lose the least.
Yeah, and you're Shogun saying, this is a 6th? Give me a break. And if you're slip and slides, you're saying, oh man, I'm 1 off this cannon. Not going to sell for the Nico 3. They have 31 HP. They can afford to lock the shop. Coming up again against the Seraphine board, but they've got the true damage spat. It's sitting there on a Kaisa. Not the best holder, not the worst, but really the story here is going to be this MF versus the Seraphine. Can the Seraphine burst down the front line in time to get damage onto the Misfortune casting into the back line, but it's not going to be enough, and Slip and Slides takes a 5-0 loss here despite the big damage coming out from their board.
Yeah, that I'm surprised at that result just because Seraphine is great at AE damage, but the MF was just in the corner, just not ramping up, not taking any damage, and ultimately couldn't take out the Echo to win the fight.
Yeah, and we remake the Echo here to swap the guy and move those items on to the Nico 3 that they just hit. Looking at Slip and Slide's board, does have that Kiana 2 as well. Are they going to be able to get to this double Archangel's Karthus? No mana gen, but big damage going to come in on that second cast if they can get it off. The Misfortune again just able to sit in the back line. ramping up this damage from the Rage Blade. Can they turn their sights onto the Karthus? Yes, they can. Slip and Slides lives to see at least one more fight, and Papa Lev taking the loss there. And we're seeing, I think, in such contrast, these reroll boards really sort of like taking the lead in this lobby over the. We haven't seen TF. We're not seeing Karthus doing quite as well as we've seen in other lobbies, and Seraphine and Misfortune kind of taking the lead.
Yeah, I mean, the TF player just didn't hit, but then all
Sure.
these there were multiple Karthus boards, right? I think at least 2 or 3, and they just contest each other. Every single board is going to be a little weaker up until the very end, like that Yorick 2 that Papa Lev just hit. And then these Karthus items are a little sus, right? Like, if you can get that third cast off, you're probably good, but you have to get there first.
Yeah. One thing that would definitely help with that is a Thresh 3, and Papa Lev is 2 Threshes away from making that happen. So it remains to see if they will live long enough for that to occur. We can see the Viego getting that big ult into the backline, but again, are they going to be able to hit that Seraphine for enough damage? It doesn't seem like. Edge of Night has already been procced. He gets another ult off, but it's not going to be enough damage. But here comes the Karthus ult, and it is enough damage. And Papa Lev stealing one against Capybara, who has their streak broken for the first time in what feels like the entire game.
Yeah, it's almost the entire game. That Thresh positioning, I mean, Kathy just has to sit there because of those KDA hexes, but the Thresh just is able to stun the Seraphine for 2.5 seconds or whatever a 2-star Thresh stuns for. That Yorick gets his second cast off, you just get more HP on the board, you get more survivability. That Karthus actually gets that third cast off and kills the Seraphine.
Here we come up against the Ghost board with that MF. He has the Lucian now in, holding that true damage spat. We did see that they hit that Nico 3 upgrade. Being able to win against this Ghost and how close it is often is sort of like a litmus test for how strong your board will actually be against these. So oftentimes you'll find yourself saying, "Oh, okay, I beat the Ghost with 5. That means I might actually lose by 1 unit, right?" Like, you kind of want to beat that Ghost board with like most of your board intact is what I find. But we're coming up here going into stage 7 with honestly some pretty healthy HP pools here in the top 3.
Yeah, Slip and Slides, I guess, won his fight against Kathy, so he's still in, and Kathy just took a little HP hit, but still very healthy at this stage anyway, healthy at 29. I think that's probably 2 fights worth, unless you get like 10-0'd, but for the most part, you have two lives, and maybe someone else takes a hit and goes out.
Well, we see that Kathy is able to get that Sona 2 online, which is a pretty big spike for them as well. Not the greatest items in the world. Maybe thinking about onto that Ari, getting that Giant Slayer for a little bit more damage. We can see that Kathy is holding one of those Threshes to prevent that Thresh stun from getting even more stunning. And now they are up against the board that was able to clear them before. We see that Kane 2 was finally hit. We saw that they were holding on to Kane for quite some time. But again, fighting the Ghost board, if you're Kathy, I would have to think that most of the lobby being this healthy into stage 7 must be extremely frustrating. I think one of the things about having this early Seraphine 3 is you really want to tax the lobby. You really want to knock some people down early. And the longer this goes on, the longer everybody has to cap their board. As we can see, the Kane 2 has come online. Where the 7 pentakill board is only going to get stronger. We did sell off the Threshes, but now maybe rolling for a Karthus 3 instead. Everybody has a little bit more time to hit those spikes, and Kathy doesn't have a lot of room to get much stronger than they already are.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And Papa Lev 2 HP now. They did take a loss last fight, but still in fighting fighting a real board this time, but you know,
we saw they decided to remake the Karthus and take that Morello off, maybe saying, okay, well, if I live long enough to get another item off of the carousel, maybe I can get a Spear of Sojin, but otherwise I'm just sitting here with this dead item, and doesn't really matter. I don't think it would have made a difference. Papalev going out in third, and now we have Slip and Slide and Kathy, the battle of the re-rollers, and Slip and Slide's on a 5 streak here, and has to be considered the favorite with that Kiana 2, with that Nico 3 to be able to pull this off, not to mention, Lucian with true damage in the backline.
Yeah, this board is, basically at its capped state. 4 Jazz, 4 true damage, Nico 3, Kiana 2. I guess he can fight a Lucian too to make it even better. But yeah, you don't get much better than this when you're playing Jazz.
Yeah, but Kathy does find this Alawi too. Is it going to be enough to keep the MF busy? The Alawi is able to cast, get those tentacles back online. The Seraphine is still in the back line, pretty much untouched. Now it is just a matter of getting it back to this MF. Can they kill it in time? They can. Slip and Slides is going to be out of here, and it is Seraphine 3 taking this lobby.
That is amazing because one, I love the Seraphine reroll comp.
Right.
it is my favorite reroll comp right now. But just to see how capped that can get, that it can defeat that Jazz board when you get your entire board online, when you get that Sona 2, when you're able to stall long enough for both Seraphine and Sona to just keep ramping up forever. I think that was a very great capped out version of that board.
Sure, and I think it benefits from the fact that they're the TF player somehow didn't manage to hit, right, and this Karthus board didn't have Pentakill Akali, those units that really can get that big damage on the back line and empower the Karthus. I think allowed Kathy to build towards that cap. I was saying, there's not a whole lot of ways they can cap out. Prove me wrong. Slide in a little Sona 2, slide in an Alawi 2, get a little bit more for that MF to have to deal with. We know that, when MF casts it sort of hits and branches out, but if it's branching out into tentacles that respawn, and you can't get into that Seraphine at all, she's just going to be able to obliterate your board, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. The cap version of that board does need Alawi, does need Sona. Otherwise, you have the Karthus that just blow up the Seraphine eventually. The MF would eventually, get through the everything that's not a tentacle and kill the Seraphine and everything else. So, yeah. Great play by Kathy, and then great play also by everyone else, especially the ones that are contesting pentakill and still finding a way to make the board work and get the top 4 out of it.
I think one of the interesting things about this league format of tournament is you see how things sort of shift depending on game to game, right? 3 people tried to play Pentakill in the last lobby. I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to play something else. But if everybody starts to think that, then you just wind up with different people contesting in different ways. It's going to be very, very curious to see how we sort of shift and move as our players adapt to each other, adapt to each other's play styles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of scouting that needs to be done that might not be getting done right now. But for now, we're going to go to a break. And when we come back, we will have our 4th game of the day.
We are back for the final game of the day, game 4 of AML. And we've seen a lot of different lines played a lot of different ways. And like I said before the break, I'm so curious to see how people will adapt to that. If you're playing in this lobby and maybe you're like the TF player who missed, or you're a Pentakill player who wasn't able to hit that Akali, how are you adapting to that situation?
Yeah, I think the TF player just kind of low rolled because no one was actually contesting TF, so they just didn't hit. Everyone was taking the Viegos and Karthuses out of the pool, but you just don't hit that TF, and then what do you do? So I think that was a low roll, but I think I know we were talking about this right before the break, but I think there's a lot of scouting to do. People don't need to be contesting Karthus 3 ways, right? Like,
Right.
those same items that go on Karthus can go on TF, so you don't need to contest it. You can go TF, you can go RE, you can go something else. And early and mid game, if you see a line that someone else isn't playing, like we saw the Yone player this time, Kathy played that Seraphine, rerolled to a first. Go one of those paths. I haven't seen a Riven last game, and that's actually really surprising because Riven destroys Karthus.
Right. I think when I'm playing on ladder, usually by 2-5, I've said, okay, this is what I'm playing, and I know that for a lot of people, it can be hard to break out of that mentality. I certainly struggle with it from time to time, but I think if you really want to be successful in pivoting out of those, like maybe low rolls, you have to be able to say, okay, let me look around. What can I do that no one else is doing? And maybe jump into, I'm going to play, maybe even play like KDA Ari and play for a top 4. It's not as strong as it was last patch, but it could still do the job. We saw with that Viego pivot into the AD pentakill line, that could be, pretty successful if you're not able to find what you're looking for. But I agree. I think, people maybe need to look around the lobby a little more and say, okay, like I can't, this guy already has, headliner Karthus. This guy also has headliner Karthus. I probably am not going to hit.
Yeah, probably not. And, bear in mind that this is a league. This is multi-weeks. It's not just a one-day tournament where, you might need to go first or eighth in some circumstances. You pivot to something else, you take that top 4, and you get more points throughout the weeks, and then you eventually get to the playoffs that way. If you keep contesting everyone and you end up in those 7ths and 8ths, that's where you get cut off after, the first 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen, in these leagues, the difference between making the playoffs and not be a point or 2. And so, in this first week, obviously people are kind of shaking the rust off and getting to know the other players in the lobbies that they're playing, because we do have a lot of new faces this season. But, these games do matter. Every single point is going to add up to those cutoffs at the end of the day. And you do, want to play obviously for the highest placement that you can. And it can't always just be that 1st or 8th, like you're saying, because those couple of points that you lose on that 6th, 7th, 8th placement instead of a 4th or a 3rd can make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's see what they end up doing this game, because I think, being the 4th game of the day, there will be a lot more variation than there was before, or at least hopefully. Right. People are getting used to it. People are shaking off the rust. People are shaking off the nerves that they might have for playing in the league for a first time. And, maybe we'll see some RE. Maybe we'll like RE as in, not a, I didn't hit TF, so I just play RE kind of RE. Maybe some other 3 costs. I know we've seen Country earlier in the day. We might see it again. Riven. There's multiple 3 costs that can be rerolled, right? Maybe we'll see a Twin Terror game.
That's what I was. Yeah, like we haven't seen Twin Terror, I think, all day, and that's one of those instant picks for me. If I see it, I was literally before the broadcast today. I was playing contested Twin Terror, and I hit, and they didn't, which made me pretty happy. But it's still a line that you can play contested, and even if you're not the one who hits all of the 3 stars, you can still top 4 with it. It's such a strong augment. So it'll be interesting to see. Silver Symphony, Spatula, Tactician's Crown, all on order here. Everybody's sort of like taking their pick. No one a clear favorite, but Kathy could potentially one guy, but no, we're going Silver Symphony. It's going to be a very, very, very low-key game comparatively. No prismatics, no gold, all silver all day.
Yeah, this, on the level of portals, this was one of my favorites to take. It does mean no Twin Terror, though, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But I think this is one of those times where you... Never mind. So I expect someone to be playing Edgelord of some sort. this game.
It seems like it might be Shogun Eagle here who gets the Riven and the Yone drop right off the bat, which is, yeah, you take those. You take that.
Yeah, there are some 3 costs that are just like, flat out better than others, and these 2 just give you a direction that you can choose to not go down that direction, but it feels really weird to not go down at least one of these 2.
Sure. I don't have a lot of experience with Riven or Yone rerolls, and so I would just be sitting here like pulling up, Robin Song's handbook, like, okay, Robin, help me out here, dude. I don't know what I'm doing, but
what are the units?
And with this early Urgot drop, maybe slip and slides here, thinking about that country angle. I know I certainly would. This is one of my favorite comps in the game. So I see that Urgot and I'm like, well, that's locked in for me. I don't know what the rest of you guys are doing, but I'm re-rolling Samira.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of them might want to change the items that they get, but this is great tank items, just very generically flexible. But you do want to see that IE if you are going to be rolling for Samira.
See, I'm like, I'll get it. It'll show up. I'm not worried about it. Here we're looking at bulk or good for something. We do reroll into parting gifts. I personally am not as much of a believer in bulk as a lot of other players are, but they reroll into cutting corners. And what's your pick here?
Bulk is generically good. I am not also like especially the silver one, right? Like I think if you get the prismatic one, that's a lot of extra HP that you can have. But the silver one, you're kind of, only one unit's getting benefit out of it right now, and then later on you have to like split components to get the benefit out of it, or you're playing down that augment. So I don't know. I don't feel good about any of those choices, but that's what happens when you're in silver.
Not in silver, but in silver augments. Bacon, we know. It does appear that Bacon got a more econ opener, only having the chain and the cloak drop from neutrals. For me, cutting quarters maybe is the better angle there, simply because you're going to be able to spend that gold more efficiently earlier than other people in the lobby, hitting that 10 gold threshold a little bit sooner than others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm personally like super happy to see the econ starts this set, as opposed to previous sets where I'm like, what do I do with all this gold? But yeah, it should feel pretty good.
Shogun Eagle here with the early heart steal, already taking that loss, getting to 10 out of 20. Also a really good spot to be in. They see, we can see here, they've got the Yone, they have they've got the Riven on the bench, still have a lot of different options, have the champion duplicator as well. Also, it appears looking at an econ start with only the chain and the belt.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting, right? Because we have multiple people that have Rivens and Yones, and it's, do they scout each other and figure out like who is playing what, or do they all end up trying to reroll the exact same unit?
Sure. I think it's one of the interesting things that you're allowed to do from that spot is we were talking about before, play what you hit, right? So Riven pops up, cool, I'm playing Riven. Yone pops up, cool, I'm playing Yone, right? And being able to say, I can go either direction rather than saying like, oh, I've got two Yones, I probably just need to reroll Yone and then somebody else hits. It does give you the option to pivot or make adjustments. That's an Akali.
It's a very early Akali.
That is a 2-3 Akali. Slip and slides here with the Bebe level, saying I'm going to streak and I'm going to streak and I'm going to streak, and never punished apparently.
Yeah, why? I mean, it's interesting because it's like, why not with this board? You have the 2-star Twitch, you have 4 KDA Superfan Lily at the front. I mean,
if you look around, you've seen that there are a lot of, like I said, econ starts. There's a lot of people not leveling, and I think in this spot you're saying I'm going to tax the lobby, right? If you're going to save your money, then you're not going to get to save your HP.
Yeah. Looking at this, I think he also had an econ start. He just decided to use that econ and push levels instead of everyone else who's building up their econ, because I think this is a one component start. You have the super fan item, but then you just have that one belt.
Yep. Everybody sort of taking their different tack in playstyle. I know that I'm like, I'm going to make infinite gold forever. Slip and Slide's playing way differently than I do, saying, gold is overrated. We know that it's not, but, whatever. Going for it and saying, you got all your gold, you're going to save it up. I got all this gold, I'm going to spend it.
Yeah, but he's also generating gold from the wins and the win streak that he hopes he will get through all of stage 2. So that's a lot of gold that he can make up by spending it now.
Yep, absolutely. Has the Gnar can slide a 4th superfan in if they really, really wanted to. Probably won't drop this Twitch, but also sitting here on this Mosher chosen Gnar, which is a pretty strong, headliner for this state in the game. But there's the choice of doing that or making 10, and they say, well, I'm gonna at least buy Gnar 2, slide that in, and maybe lose this Twitch.
Yeah, I would call it an interesting decision, personally. I don't know whether his board actually got better or weaker.
I don't know if Slip and Slides knows either. They're really counting on it being stronger so that they can make 10 here without having to sell the Kennen pair. But they're coming up against this country board. They are able to punch through all of these units. I think this Akali has put in so much work. And of course, this super fan frontline unit doing a lot as well. They are able to make 10. They are able to hold onto that Kennen pair. Interestingly enough, there's that Amumu in the shop. If they wanted it for more, for emo, for this Vex, a lot of different sort of decisions that they had to make there, and thankfully for them, were able to benefit from the win, making 10. Here, another Mosher Gnar. This one is taken. This one is put in, and Nada in America on that 4 streak, hoping to make it 5. Slip and Slides is in their pool, and it is who they fight. So whoever wins this will be streaking, and whoever loses this is going to have a real hard time making up that econ difference. We know Slip and Slides spent a lot of their money kind of banking on being able to streak from here, and the Battle of the Gnars is happening. The headliner Gnar with 3 items is seeming to be the winner. This Akali is not going to be able to punch through that huge HP pool. The Vex is not going to be able to do nearly enough damage. Slip and Slides slipping and sliding down out of their streak. Nada in America on the 5 and sitting pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. Dunga win. But yeah, it's one of those situations where you're level 5, but you got there because you spent all your gold and you had no items. So this 1 3-item Gnar headliner just destroyed everyone, despite you having that early Akali and that early pretty good board.
Yeah, Slip and Slide still in a really decent spot HP wise, but they spent all that money and now they're going to have to spend a lot of time building back up their econ. If I'm not mistaken, they hadn't even made 10 going into that fight, so they're going to be playing money wise quite a bit behind, whereas Nada here making 40 plus all of that win streak gold, hoping to get into that 6 win streak to get that maximum value. As we're switching over to Shogun, who did raise the stakes, they are looking now for that 5th heart steal. They have everything but the set. Surely on 5 they can find this 20% set, rolling down real deep looking for it. They do finally find it. 5 heart steal, 4 units, no problem. Question?
Oh wow, okay, they rolled down pretty deep for that. And I mean, probably fine. I don't know if I probably would have just leveled to 6 for the higher odds of rolling for a set and then just still played 4 units. But they got it anyway, and so not punished.
Yeah, and honestly, like coming into this fight, if they had positioned a little bit differently, this fight might have gone a completely different direction and ruined their raise the stakes. Instead, they're barely going to kill the unit. This headliner Seraphine in the back making another appearance, in Shogun Eagle at 148 out of 160.
Yeah, and by the way, it's Kathy again.
Oh. And immediately, smartly clicking Tiny Titans, getting that 30 HP back, now sitting at 85 HP instead of 55 HP, allowing this streak to carry on even just a little bit longer.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, you have 5 hard steel, you have the raise the stakes, you have the Tiny Titans. You want to lose as hard as possible. So you don't want to play even a 5th unit. You want to position the way that he did before, and maybe even just like put this Cassante in the back line just to make sure that no one can actually grief you. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we see a big cash out later in the stage 4 or something.
Yeah, and I think we are going to chill on Shogun Eagle for a little while until we see that cash out and exactly how high it can go. We can see Chavo here with the country spat slammed, so definitely committing into that direction. Can this Aphelios kill 1 or 2 more before 1? Yes. 2? Nope. Hitting that 241 out of 250, and time will tell. Yep, they have at least 1 more fight before they decide whether they're going to raise the stakes a second time. I do believe Protroid said anybody who did that was a sociopath, so we'll just have to see how sociopathic Shogun is feeling today.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a spot where you would do that, having picked Tiny Titans on 3-2 is probably that spot. Yeah,
I mean, they're 1 round away from making the choice. They have 5 heart steel. They're 75 HP. I mean, I think if there was ever a place to really go for that, 750 to 1,000 cash out, it's here. You don't have to put units on your board. You don't have to do anything. I mean, we're frontlining our Aphelios. That makes me feel like we're going for it.
Yeah, I mean, you do want to try to kill a couple units possibly. I think this is where scouting really would help. Just making sure that everyone in your pool is able to beat you, but that you're able to kill 1 or 2 units here and there just to preserve HP. He does get a kill there, so that's works out. But we'll see the decision here, up to 328 now.
Yeah, 64 HP, even with that Tiny Titans. So not great. It's not like they're win streaking into this or anything like that. And if you take 4 and 5 unit losses even through stage 3, you're making that decision and saying, okay, I'm 20 HP, I got this huge cash out, now what do I do, right? Seeing what that cash out is and trying not to get dizzy and building a real board so that you don't get 5-0'd again and go 8th is a huge problem potentially for Shogun Eagle if they decide to raise the stakes here, and they do. Let's go. Shogun Eagle saying, I am a sociopath. Protroid, come at me, don't at me. This is my game to win.
Yeah, this is hard 8th or hard 1st.
Yep, 1st or 8th, big time. We'll have to see if Shogun Eagle can pull it off and make it work as we look at Bacon, who has this 4 Bruiser 3 Country thing online. They do have a Tome sitting on bench. No Samira, no IE, no really anything to speak of. Not a lot of damage on their board, and this Dreadsteed is going to be able to get into that back line, but the question is, what are they going to be able to do from this spot? They have no damage. They barely have anything really going for them, and if it wasn't for the fact that they're going up against this Aphelios, this would have been a pretty nasty loss.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I think they're probably just like trying to get up to level 7 before they slow roll for all the country units that they want. But this is a pretty, I'll say like terrible spot to be in. But they are pretty healthy in the lobby because of all the people playing hard steel. So they're not in the worst position ever, and they just hit their Samira. So I'm sort of confused about that Vi and that Tarek, but
Sure.
I don't know what's happening.
I think the Tarek was just for funsies. The Vi at least gives Mosher to this Urgot, but holding on to that Tarek and that Gragas makes me think they're saying, no, actually, I'm playing Disco. They've got this tome. Maybe they can play the 6 Disco, which we have seen be very, very strong. I mean, I think that they certainly have a lot of options available to them, and maybe they're just thinking about keeping them open.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the last patch, 4-1, 4-2, level 8 rolled down into, either hit and go first or, don't hit and go 8th. So looks like that could be happening here. It's just using the 4 Bruiser 3 country as a, HP saver.
Yeah, and it has the Samira pair if they want it. I don't know. Blistering Strikes doesn't strike me as something that you maybe want to do with TF, but I don't play the line, honestly. Like, it's the strong, it's one of the best comps in the game, and I'm like, it just doesn't seem that fun to me. It's too contested, so I don't know actually how Blistering Strikes performs in that comp, but it does seem interesting to me that they're saying, let's keep this open. And we're looking back at Nada again, who is still holding on to that Gnar, but has this Ari pair on the bench, has Blitzcrank potentially maybe slotting that in, and maybe they are saying, Ari.
Roll down.
Yeah, this is the roll down. Thinking about this Ezreal, and does pick it up, does slot it in, and Big Shot, I think, is almost certainly the preference over Heartsteel, certainly at this point in the game. Not a bad hit, but also not a headliner that we've seen today or just in general be very popular. I know that I played a lot of Ezreal last patch, and every time I've clicked this unit this patch, it has been a 6. So interesting to see if Nada is able to do better than me trying to pilot this unit into a top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the plan is to use this unit and then go up to 9 and possibly even 10, right? Because he has a fairly strong board. I mean, evidenced by this 5-unit win, and then he still has that gold generation from that target dummy, right? So 100 HP, very healthy, decent board. I can see going up to level 9 and getting a gen or something.
Yeah, looking at Shogun here, who is very, very close to popping this guy open, sitting at 627. Almost certainly, regardless of what happens, going to be able to pop that 750. Doing all of the tricks to make their board as useless as possible, cornering the Yone so it can't come out, a bunch of not very good units. I was going to use the more popular term that you might have heard in Twitch chat, and then remembered where I was and what I was doing. But some poopy units out there in front just to be there, just to be on the board. As they are guaranteeing this cash out is going to be as big as they can possibly get it with what they have. And hey, they even killed a unit. Look at that. Can you believe it? They killed it. It's possible. This Yone is going to come out and say chop, chop, chop. And the Urgot does fall. So they just barely, by those 2 units, get over the 750 threshold. And it is going to be a pretty juicy one. Estimated value, 85 gold.
85 gold, and they have a bunch of stuff on the bench. Wait.
And what they got, actually, it came out to over 1,000, and what they do is go straight to 9 on 4-3 on the back of all of that gold. Pretty incredible. They hit this, they've got Heartsteel, what's his butt? the guy with the thing, the Ezreal, my brain is, I'm dizzy. I'm not even playing, and I'm dizzy. Maybe even thinking with this Kayn of going 6 Heartsteel from this spot. They've got the champion duplicator. If they can find another Kayn, they might have a stage 4 Kayn too, and just say, you know what, we're staying Heartsteel 1st or 8th, big time.
Yeah, I feel like I'd really want a second Alawi over the second Kayn right now, just because like seeing that, he spent so much money on getting to 9 that he had like, I don't know, 40 gold to roll after he got to 9 and actually like put a board together. So I think that was, I don't know if that was a mistake, but or if it was just like playing the best that he could at that point. It just doesn't seem like he has a very good board right now. Like he has 1 star 5 cost and then like an unitemized Ezreal headliner.
Yeah, I think, the urge to, he saw that 169 gold and said, that's more than enough to go 9 straight away, right? And then you see that Ezreal and you say, oh, yeah, okay, and let's keep this Heartsteel thing going or whatever. I wonder if the play was just go 8 and roll it down for a much better board, much better headliner, much better spot. They hit this TF here, but again, no disco, only has 1 item on it. Where's your front line? I agree that this is not really the spot that you want to be in. You've still got these you've got an Aphelios in, you've got this Yone in, you've got a Twitch on your board, my dude. You got to figure this out.
He's got one of like every unit that goes into every other comp.
Yeah,
it's just not. It might be okay like at right now at stage 4 or 5, but it's just not where you actually want to be.
Yeah, especially when you've only got 5 HP to play with. You've got this TF, but you've got no mana generation on it. You've got the Sona, but you've got no mana generation on it. Your carry really right now is this Yone 2 with some items. You're going to be able to save a little bit of HP playing a board like Bacon's, right? Which is also kind of struggling there at 14 HP. But I just have to feel like, if you're Shogun Eagle, you're kind of hoping for a different cash out than the one you got. You took a cash out and what you got was cash.
Yeah, I think the play there probably for me would have been just to stay at 7 or 8 and roll for a 3-star Yone and play, Crowd Diver Yone, because you just treat that cash out as the Infernal Contract or whatever augment.
Right.
But a much better version of it. Now we're on Kathy's board, who is playing Seraphine reroll again, except this time she has not been able to see the 3-star Seraphine, so much weaker than the previous versions that we've seen.
Yeah, and another situation of where's your front line, as we can see that now the Cassante has made their way into the back line. This ult from the Ezreal cleans up quite a bit, but the Seraphine's still alive, still throwing the damage out. And now it seems that the question remains, where is their opponent's front line? Nada here does pull it off, though, with that last second ult from the Ezreal, who did have that sort of quasi-proto ascension buff from the target dummy, able to deal that last bit of damage that they needed.
Yeah, for sure. That was almost a no blue buff on Ezreal diff.
Yeah. Definitely a Seraphine 2 diff.
Yeah, definitely a Seraphine 2 diff. Although, getting below 50, not the worst thing ever with that stim pack augment. Get the cash out the 4 components here. Right.
It is also worth noting that Nada, who they just fought, that last second Ezreal ult preserved their Mr. 100 game. As we now are looking back at Shogun Eagle still, or no, this is Nada. I was reading the bottom instead of the top. Here is Nada's board with a board from last patch with this Sentinel Heartsteel Big Shot Ezreal thing going on. they were talking about earlier in the broadcast, right? Just because something Protroid was saying, just because something got nerfed doesn't mean you can't play it. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not as good as it was before. And here we see Nada 100 streaking. They're on a 15 streak. I hope we don't cast or curse them by looking at them, but just goes to show, this board is still completely viable even after nerfs. The Akali is targeting that target dummy, does not kill it in time, but Karthus does kill it. The Zac 2 is going to have to do a ton of work that it is not capable of doing. Nada takes their first loss. I'm sorry, Nada. That's on me. I should have said anything. You can, yell at me in the chat. That's my B.
Smaller dongo than before. Goes up to 5 heart steal and 4 sentinel. That's interesting. Although he definitely has the HP, and at stage 5, I believe you get like a whole lot more hearts than before. I think you get like 2 hearts per kill instead of 1. And then with the 5 heart steal multiplier, it ends up being quite a lot of hearts.
Well, what's interesting to me is you say, okay, I'm 87 HP. I finally lost. I have 56 gold and I'm level 9. Nada is clearly going for the level 10 super Piba cash out Bill Gates nasty board, but they're going to have to contend with a 7 country Dreadsteed, which is no slouch. I played against this earlier, and the Dreadsteed had like 7,200 HP. It was basically unkillable, and I think they just won the lobby off of having all of the other units would be dead, but the Dreadsteed would be alive with like 3,600 HP, and just won the battle of attrition. Here we can see that Chabo has hit the Samira. They've hit the Amumu now. They are 1 off of Vex 3 and, quite far away from Urgot, but Urgot there is not doing as much, and in strong contention to clear this lobby from this spot.
Yeah, this is basically the capped version of this country board, and the kind that we, see more of now that the country emblem can be built. Mm-hmm. So yeah, very good spot, just solid 38 HP. I think if we can definitely see someone like Nada cap out higher, just because they can go to level 10, they can get all the legendaries. But this is going to be the strongest board for a while, even if it's just a 1 Dreadsteed remaining.
Yeah, and here it is, the Nami versus the Dreadsteed, who had like 2 HP, and the Dreadsteed still able to hold on. Papa Lev dropping down to 11 HP. Bacon going out, Shogun going out. Shogun playing that Heartsteel line that was very first or 8th into an 8th. Bacon going 7th, and Kathy and Papa on the Razor's Edge. Kathy, I'm not sure if we've seen whether they got that Seraphine 3 online, but it feels like it may be a little bit too late.
Yeah, middle of stage 5, getting that Seraphine 3 online, good, but a little too late. It's kind of like when you're rolling for that Yasuo 3 and you don't get them until like stage 4.
Yeah, and we saw a slip and slides denying country spat on the carousel, smartly saying, okay, like, I don't know if this is going to be any use for me, but it's not going to be any use for you. And Papalev playing this disco line that we did not see last game because the person playing it missed and went out early. Papalev's trying to say, okay, I hit. Surely I don't go out early, right? I hit, I've got 5 disco. I've got upgraded everything. I've got a Kiana 2. I've got a Ziggs with 2 items. Surely Seraphine 2 cannot defeat me. I think probably not, but it will really depend on whether this TF is able to chunk through. It does look like he's going to be able to. The Blitzcrank holding on for so long, and that is going to be a 4-0 to Kathy, who drops out in 6th place. Lev picking up a position, fighting for that top 4.
Yeah, that has to feel really good, especially, playing into a Seraphine comp, which is supposed to be strong against Disco, but not if you only have a Seraphine 2.
Yeah, you have to think that Kathy has to be ruining the day. Maybe they used up all their luck in the last game and Mortog flipped the switch, but must be very frustrating to miss an uncontested unit that you rolled down for the entire game. That's never happened to me, so I'm making the assumption, of course, that it would be frustrating. Like, I always hit. So.
Yeah, I always hit too. I just might hit at stage 6.
Right, yeah. I always hit something. I either hit my unit or my desk, one or the other. Sometimes both. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes you just get a little worked up. Here we can see Soak does have that headliner Karthus, and it does not look like it's going to matter. So playing that line that we've seen do so well today, but dropping down to 10 HP, Papa Lev holding on. That trade there makes it so that Lev has a much better chance of hitting that top 4. And again, Soak playing something that we've seen top 2 in a lot of our lobbies, top 2, top 3, and not being able to pull it off necessarily.
Yeah, this lobby is very interesting now. There's just a lot of different comps being played, including this weird 5 Heart Steel 4 Sentinel thing that Nada is going up to level 10 eventually and doing something else with. But then we have, TF, Karthus, and, people are just living. And, fights aren't necessarily going the way that I think they might. Akali usually kills the back line even against a disco comp, right? But then we saw TF just live forever.
The people are just out here living. They're just living their best lives, playing their strongest boards. Live, laugh, love. That's what it's all about here in the AML. And I don't know how far off Nada is from that cash out, but you have to assume that they're going to get out of here pretty soon. They are trying to go level 10 with maximum gold. They are still sitting on 50 gold, 66 out of 84 HP to go 10. They're saying, if I want to cap this board, I'm going to cap it. Staying in at 5 Heart Steel. The question is, can they kill enough units? They might actually win here, it looks like, especially with this, the augment target dummy, the needlessly large gem. But no,
yes,
Nada taking the loss there, going to 279 out of 300 stacks, going level 10, 50 gold with this Heartsteel cash out still on the way. Yorick pair, Sona in shop. They're going to see the best possible shops in the game, and now dropping this MF in there. They've got the Yorick 2. They've got Jin pair if they want it. It's going to be hard to beat this board once it finally hits a cap.
Yeah, the decisions here have to be so interesting, right? They passed the Lucian headliner because they wanted to keep this 4 big shot board. The Jin's not going to do a whole lot right now because he has so much stuff on the bench. But he also doesn't have a lot of lives to work with anymore if he doesn't start actually capping out his board.
I mean, honestly, what a blessing to fight Ghost here in this spot. 295 out of 300, but still a pretty big cash out, 38 gold value. You're 32 gold already. You have a Yorick 2 sitting on your bench, right? And now you're sitting in the top 3. Soak has gone out, Lev has gone out. Soak able to pull that top 4 off with that Karthus board, and Lev unfortunately not able to hold on for a top 4, as we see Nada now hitting Lucian 2, Jin 2, Blitz 2, Yorick 2 in the game, Zac 2, Alawi pair on bench, rolling it down to as low as they can get it. Missed Jin 3 by the looks of it. Continuing to roll, maybe trying to find this Alawi 2 if they can possibly do it, but a really good spot for them to be in as they're coming up against this capped country board that has hit the Vex 3. So can country pull it off? Can this Dreadsteed do the damage? The Ezreal ult goes into the back line and chunks down to about half. The gold is coming out, that partial ascension, basically a free augment. The Jin is still up, still going, and absolutely obliterates this country board. Chabo dropping down to 22, and Slip and Slide still holding on, waiting for the fight to conclude, is able to beat the Ghost, and this is a tight lobby, everybody in the 20s, and we're coming up on the 6-4 carousel.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I'm pretty sure everyone just doesn't want to play against Nada or wants to play against his Ghost, if anything. It's just a very interesting position now that he's level 10. He's cashed out all of that stuff. He's still fairly like rich. I think he's got a bit of gold to work with to roll for that Alawi too. But yeah, whereas I mean, Slip and Slides is in a weird spot. He's 44 gold, level 8. He wants to go 9. He wants to do more, but right now there's nothing more that he can do with this board.
Yeah, it looks like they grabbed the KDA emblem, or grabbed an emblem, and are Pandora's re-rolling it to try and get that 7 pentakill online. This is always the sort of risk, right, of playing Pandora's items with something like that, is there's a lot of emblems that can run through, and now you have to face Nada, and your board with that 6 pentakill instead of 7 might be doing Nada itself, because you've got this Jhin in the backline with double a guard breaker. You've got Lucian too. You've got this Ezreal that has taken no damage, and unfortunately Slip and Slides does not kill enough units and goes out in third place. We can see from the sidebar that Chabo here has hit the Urgot 3, so really starting to hit the max cap on their board. Nada rolling down and saying, I'm getting more dogged so hard, I can't hit Alawi 2. Who's balancing this game? Rito, please. All I want to do is cap my board with an Alawi 2.
Yeah, uncontested 5 cost legendary board, can't hit an Alawi 2. Like, what's going on there?
Shaking my head, man. And this is probably going to be the last fight of the game, but time will tell. I mean, this board is about as capped as you're going to get for a country board. So can Samira punch through into the backline before losing it all? The Lucian is targeting the backline, and absolutely between Ezreal and Lucian obliterates the Samira, and the Jhin and the Lucian hang on, able to defeat the Dreadsteed, but honestly that fight is a lot closer than I expected. And if you're Chabo, you have to be thinking, okay, what can I do positioning wise? What can I do to get into that backline, get that damage on those units, so before my Dreadsteed goes down?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a positioning puzzle. You have the Vex and the Amumu that's going to CC people. You have the Samira that needs to kill people. You have the Thresh that can CC like something in the back line. And then Nada just has like so many units on the board, like both front line and back line, that you need to like figure out exactly who you need to CC and who you need to punch through to be able to win your fights.
Yeah, and that item bench is just a real curiosity to me. As Chabo also looking at it saying, why do I have 4 Reforgers? But yeah. I guess if you don't find what you're looking for here, you just keep re-rolling it. You basically have Pandora's bench, but does take the red buff onto the Urgot, which is a great item for that unit, being able to spread that anti-heal around. That could be so important. We have moved the Vex into the middle, which is going to give her a little bit more CC, and maybe with the Samira moving towards the middle, the Ezreal will be less inclined to target her. We saw that the Lucian and the Ezreal combo was too much last time around, and it does seem like that positioning has paid off. The Dreadsteed is in the backline. Samira has been untouched this entire time, and Nada taking a hit, dropping down to 7 HP, and we've got ourselves a ball game.
Yeah, wow. I think it's just like so much clump in the front line, which normally against other comps would be like just like really awesome, but against this Vex and Samira, they just punch through that front line so quickly that it doesn't even matter that you have like 10 units at the front.
Yeah, and Chabo saying, okay, if I'm going to have all these Reforgers, I'm going to get some value out of it. Reforges the red buff into a Warmogs that immediately goes onto the Thresh, which is a big upgrade to that front line yet again. And it looks like Nada might have sold board to try and hit a Yorick 3, and it did not work out. So this one is going to be Chabo's game. Nada saying, I'm all in, and did not make it happen. Chabo with the 7 country board, pulling it off. Nada's board not quite enough to get through that big chunky dread steed and finish the job. Surprising to me. I don't know about you, but I really thought, that became a positioning puzzle for both of them. And Nada said, you know what? I don't want to have to worry about positioning. I'm going to try and hit Yorick 3 and see what happens. What happens is I take a second and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's exciting, especially if we were on his point of view, watching that roll down. As it stands, it seems a little bit anticlimactic to see, okay, he had a full board, they were trading wins, and then suddenly he just has like 5 Yoriks on the board, and it's like,
sure.
Oh,
all right, well.
That's the very last fight, a full capped out country board versus like 5 Yoriks.
Yeah. Yorick's great unit. Love Yorick. But Yorick 2, Yorick 1, Yorick 1, and I think a set in the background, not going to do the trick. But, if you're going for the win out, if you're really trying to live the fantasy of, I went 10, I have a zillion gold, why not sell your board, see what happens, guarantee the victory, or take your 7 points and go home. I agree, anticlimactic, but still kind of fun to watch. And like all of our games today, I think, again, it's been so interesting to see how much variance we've seen in builds, in the meta, in what is capable of winning lobbies. We've seen Seraphine win a lobby. We've seen Country Reroll win a lobby. We've seen so many different things very viable in top fouring, and I think it says a lot about the skill expression of our players and the state and health of the game right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this patch is much better than a lot of people give it credit for. I think the portals are a little sus, personally. There's enough for fun portals out there that affects games, but the meta itself, the paths that you can take to get it into everything, I think the only thing that we have been sort of missing is the AD line, but then we saw Nada just take the Ezreal headliner and go up to 10, right? So it's clearly still possible to take that in the right spot and get a top 2 out of it. But other than that, yeah, totally agree. We've seen so many different comps, top 4 and win lobbies today that, it seems like a very healthy meta.
Yeah, and I think, Nada giving us a masterclass in sort of playing that flexibly, right? Being able to look around and say, what can I do from this spot, and what's my cap, and taking an unconventional line, conventional last patch, unconventional this patch, and turning it almost into a top 1. There's. If you hit that early, if you're saying, okay, what do I do with this AD stuff? Here is a great example of what you can do with it. But that is going to be it for us today. I think it's been a really exciting day of games. I can't wait to see what week 2 brings us. I'm Rain101. You can find me at Rain101 TV on Twitter and most places. Rain101 here on Twitch. I stream every once in a while. Purple Pouring joining me. Where can they find you? Any shout outs you'd like to give?
Yes, I am Purple Pouring pretty much everywhere. If it's not my main, you can get to Purple Pouring and then find my main. So either way, you'll get to me. I haven't streamed in a while, but I do expect to stream a little more once I get set up. And I'm back in Grandmaster sometimes, so my streams might actually be a little more fun than they were before to watch.
That's been it for us today. Thank you so much, Pouring. It's been a pleasure as always. We are going to send it over to one of our ACL players, Spicy Appies, who is, if I'm not mistaken, playing in KDA. So go over there, give them some love, drop a follow, and we will see you again next week for more Aegis League action.
Yep, Pouring Party.